Oh, come on. Okay. It should pop up live at 7 o'clock. But the YouTube is going right now.
Okay. Call this meeting to order.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Pipia, present. Fry,
Present.
Stroller,
Here.
Hughes,
Present.
Bikeman,
Present.
Price,
Here.
Behrens,
Here.
Crom,
Here.
8-0, we have a quorum.
All right, first up is approval of the minutes from the regular meeting September 27th, 2021.
Move to approve regular minutes, meeting September 27th, 2021, as written.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion, amendments, changes? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
8-0.
8-0. Next up, we have special meeting on September 30th, 2021.
Move to approve minutes, special meeting September 30th, 2021.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Terry?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I got a statement about the voting at the September 30th meeting,
Okay.
and I have an amendment. I looked at our governing body handbook, and on page 18 it states, council members are discouraged from abstaining from voting on any issue before the council unless a conflict of interest exists. It does not say you can be forced to vote. I had the right to abstain. As a council member, I took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Kansas. I cannot vote for something that I believe is a result of non-compliance with the Kansas Constitution. I request my statement be included in the minutes of this meeting. Thank you. And I'd like this inserted behind Throm seconded it.
Okay.
Have them as amended?
Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? 7-1. Okay.
Who was the no, please?
Keith.
Thank you.
Next up is public comment. Is anybody here for 5-minute public comment?
Are you making this?
I believe I'm following.
Oh, you're following, okay.
Is anybody here for 5-minute public comment?
I'm
Okay.
going to comment, as
Okay.
usual. I know you are all getting tired of seeing me, and I'm kind of getting sick of seeing you. I have complete respect for Mr. McNish. He does his duty. I have complete respect for the 3 people that voted to keep Todd here.
We've never had a vote.
Pardon?
We've never had a vote concerning.
Well, whatever in the hell you did. Yeah. And anyway, I'm sorry for saying hell.
We don't need to use foul language.
Well, that's
I mean,
not too foul. But anyway, what I would like to say is that I told you back then that, you know, Marysville's a small town. I am not a Facebook person, so I don't know anything of that. I only know word on the street. The word on the street has it. There were 4 people involved, Todd and whoever this under guy is, a new woman cop, and another person. And I don't like to mention the name, but you all know who it is. And they were having a private conversation. I do not know where. But this private conversation, one of the police, not Todd, and I won't say who said, because I don't think that's right for me. Somebody said, well, it's nice to have some boobs on the force. Whoever this under guy is, who I don't know the name, I've never met the man, immediately jumped up and said, oh, that's sexual harassment, that's sexual harassment. And then nothing was done. So if I think that any of you are using that kind of thing in your judgments, you're not being very fair to anybody, not even yourselves. You know, there's not one damn one of us in this room that hasn't done something wrong. And I admire the 3 people that voted for him. And as a member of Marshall County, Kansas, and the United States of America, I thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
Okay. Does anybody else here for 5-minute public comment? Okay. We will move on to business and discussion items. First up, we have a request to repeal ordinance number 1900 from Jamie Anderson.
We're going to deal with the
There's a
drainage issue.
plug-in right there.
The drainage issue.
He's not here.
Oh,
He's not
He's
here.
not going to.
Should this just turn on if I plug it in?
It should, when the TV comes on. It's coming on. Let me make sure everybody can see this.
Thank you. And I know some people are watching online. You won't be able to see the slides, I believe, so I will drop them in the comments if anybody wants to see them.
I'm gonna make sure they can see them online.
Awesome. Appreciate that. Okay. All right, so first of all, I would just like, this is a lot of information. You probably see in your agenda, it's a lot of information. So if you could just please, I'd like to politely ask you to refrain from asking any questions or comments until I'm all the way through, because most likely anything you want to ask, I'm going to answer it as we get through. I want to start by saying that I'm not here in regards to Chief Ackerman. This is actually no longer about what you did to him. It's about what you've done to every person in this room and all of the people that live in Marysville. I am not here to tell you that you shouldn't have shifted the authority the way that you did. If the council believed this would be the best structure for the city, that's fine. But I'm here to show you that the way it was done was unconstitutional. What you did is just fine if that's what the city council wanted to do. But you can't just sneak in the back door. You have to go through the proper channels and do it correctly, as the Kansas Constitution requires. And even if everything that I say tonight falls on deaf ears, I hope that the people of Marysville will better understand what has happened, because that's what I've been asking for from the very beginning, is some transparency. So why I'm here is because in June, Ordinance 1900 passed with a 4-4 vote and a mayor tiebreaker. In the July meeting, Councilmember Hughes requested to get an opinion from the Attorney General to see if this was in line with the Kansas Constitution, and that failed in a 2-4 vote. That's where my interest in this really got started, and that's where all my research began. As I went on, I've done hours upon hours and days of research to find that Ordinance 1900 is not in compliance with the Kansas State Constitution. It violates the constitutional right of all Marysville citizens, and therefore, it's your civic duty to repeal it this evening. Somehow, there is a misunderstanding in our community, and I don't know if it is shared up here, but it is definitely shared in the community somehow, that people believe that our city has just opted out of all of the statutes. This is not the case. You can pass charter ordinances to exempt out of specific statutes. In fact, it's actually called chartering out of a statute, but you can't just make your own code book and act like your new rules prevail over the Kansas Constitution. I would like for you to consider this question before you proceed. If the Constitution can just be ignored, then why do we even need it? For anybody who would like to know where I got this information, I got it all on my own. Through the Constitution is online, it's a PDF. You can request records from Cindy at the City Hall for anything that is not on the Marysville website. The City Code has an awesome search function, so if anybody out there wants to read about anything, you can just search it on the website. The League of Kansas Municipalities has some publications, and you can also find the Kansas statutes online. Okay, obviously everyone up here knows the difference between an ordinance and a charter ordinance, but I highly doubt a lot of people in Marysville do, because I sure didn't until I started researching all of this. So just so that we're clear, an ordinary ordinance is a piece of legislature that's passed by our governing body, which would be who's sitting up here. It can be about something that the state legislature does not address that we need it to, or you can pass an ordinance on something that's already been passed at the state level, but you need to change it a little bit as long as it's not in conflict with the law. Now, in the box there is charter ordinances. That's what we're really here to talk about today. Charter ordinances are a very powerful thing. They were established in the 1960s in our state. There's only a few states that actually allow them. And it allows for what's called home rule powers. Home rule powers are not absolute, and for some reason they've become a bit of a scapegoat for places to say that we're exhibiting our home rule powers, and that's not what they're meant to do. A charter ordinance allows a city to charter itself or exempt itself out of a specific state statute. They can also just amend it. So I'm going to give an example, if you guys all remember, when they passed the charter ordinance that we could sell alcohol in our town on Sundays. That is an example of a charter ordinance because it's different than what was stated in the Kansas statutes, and they wanted to change or amend that to better fit our city's needs. Side note is charter ordinances are very rare. There's only been 23 passed in Marysville's history. So there's been entire city councils, entire city administrator terms, entire mayor terms that have never seen a charter ordinance pass. That's how rare that they are. Because they're not easy to do. And I'm going to explain that shortly. A couple important notes is that charter ordinances, the reason that they were created is to allow for stability in a community. Because without them, a new government could come in and just clean house and change the rules of everything in the city. So they put in these charter ordinances so that communities can make things fit their community needs, but without making it easy to quickly change it so that the constituents understand what is happening in their community. And very, very important to know is that per the Kansas Constitution in Article 12, Section 5C4, charter ordinances control and prevail over any prior, which means before, or subsequent, which means after, act of the governing body, which means that any act that is passed by our city council after or before a charter ordinance, the charter ordinance prevails over that, okay? And you're going to want to remember that second part. Let's talk about Marysville Charter Ordinance number 9, which you've probably heard about. Everyone should be familiar with it by now. It was passed in 1995, and it modified Section 5 of, it modified this statute. I'm not going to take the time to read the numbers, but the number's up there if you want to look it up. And it modified how we deal with elective and appointed officers in terms of hiring and firing, to make it a little bit more layman's terms. So what Marysville did in 1995 is they adapted that statute to fit our city's needs. And what it said was that we need 5 affirmative council votes to approve the hiring or firing of chief of police, city clerk, and city administrator. It also included some other provisions, like they don't have to reappoint every year. So we just changed that statute to fit our needs, because in 1995, our city council believed that that was what the right way to deal with those positions. Okay? This was in effect until it was repealed by Ordinance 1900, which means that when I asked you, Mayor Barnes, at September 27th meeting, if the city administrator had the authority to terminate the chief of police before Ordinance 1900 was passed, and you told me that he did, that was incorrect. Okay, so the city passed an ordinance, right, to amend or repeal the Charter Ordinance number 9. Sounds right to everybody, right? No. Because a charter ordinance can only be amended or repealed by passing a new charter ordinance. And this is according to the Kansas Constitution. There's the citing if you want to look it up, okay? So what if the council no longer wanted to require 5 council votes to deal with those positions? What if the council wanted to amend or repeal Charter Ordinance number 9? Yeah, can you do that? Sure, you have to pass a new charter ordinance. Here's how that's done. First, you need a 2/3 vote of the governing body. And here in Marysville, that means 6 votes, okay? Secondly, it has to be published once a week in the Marysville Advocate, once a week for 2 consecutive weeks. After that second publication, the charter ordinance, there is a 60-day waiting period to allow the public to petition the ordinance to be submitted to a vote, okay? And if you remember, that happened with the alcohol charter ordinance. It was petitioned to a vote. 10% of the number of last voters in the last election petitioned it, so it went to a vote. If it doesn't go to a vote, then the charter ordinance is effective on day 61. Okay? Does anyone remember any of these things happening this summer? They didn't, because the city did not pass a new charter ordinance. They passed Ordinary Ordinance 1900. All right, we're going to jump and talk about a different charter ordinance, which is number 18. Okay? This was passed in 2008, and you're going to think this isn't related because it kind of seems that way, so I'll explain why. Charter Ordinance number 18 exempted the city from a different statute. You'll see the number up there is different. Okay? And this took a lot of work to figure this out. I had to go back to 2008 city council meetings and request them from City Hall to see what that charter ordinance number 18 was meant to do. And in the meeting minutes, it says, word for word, that the council does not need to give a reason to deny an appointment. So after finding that statute, I could see that the reason is when a position was appointed by the mayor, that statute says that within 45 days, the council can deny it, but they had to give reason, okay? So our council decided they didn't want to give that reason, so that is why they made this charter ordinance. Again, that is stated in the council minutes, okay? So this summer, Ordinance 1900, at that meeting, it was presented as there are some technical errors in Ordinance 1891 regarding Charter Ordinance number 18. So that's the one I just told you about that makes it so the council does not have to give a reason to deny the mayoral appointment, okay? To deny why they hired the city administrator or something like that, okay? So according to Ordinance 1900, that Charter Ordinance number 9 was repealed by implication by number 18, and it just wasn't done, okay? I want to explain what that means, because that also took a lot of research on my part. Repeal by implication means that it meant to repeal it, okay? We meant to do that. So basically, in layman's terms, Ordinance 1900 says, we messed up 13 years ago. We actually meant to repeal Charter Ordinance number 9, and we just didn't do it. So now we're passing this ordinary ordinance, and we're going to repeal it because we meant to do that. Okay? All right, so about those technical errors, let's talk about that. It seems like kind of a vague thing to say, so I had to delve a little bit deeper. If you're paying attention, you're probably thinking what I thought at first. Well, how can Charter Ordinance number 18 repeal by implication Charter Ordinance number 9? They address two separate statutes, and that's true, they do. They deal with two completely separate ideals. 18 exempts us, or the city council, from having to give a reason to deny the appointment of a mayoral appointment. Charter Ordinance number 9 says that we need to have 5 affirmative votes to approve a hire or fire. They don't even deal with the same thing. And in fact, Charter Ordinance 18 did not repeal number 9 because the state constitution specifically says that you must explicitly state what you are repealing, which number 18 does not do. I'll be showing it to you shortly. I have the meeting minutes from 2008 when Charter Ordinance number 18 was passed, and according to McNish, Charter Ordinance number 18 exempts the city from having to state the reasons why they would deny an appointment. There is nothing about termination. There is nothing about a council vote. You can't just rewrite history and say that you meant to also repeal or address something. It's not documented in the Charter Ordinance, nor in the meeting minutes. You're fooling no one that 13 years later you realize something was left out. Perhaps in 2008 you really did discuss that. Perhaps you really did mean to do that. But it cannot be proven because it is not documented. So for these reasons, Ordinance 1900 violates the Kansas Constitution, and it cannot amend or repeal a charter ordinance, and it denied the Marysville citizens of their Kansas constitutional right to petition that the ordinance be submitted to a vote of the electors. Charter ordinance be submitted to a vote. Remember, as stated in the Kansas Constitution, the only way a charter ordinance can be amended or repealed is by passing a new charter ordinance, which would include all those steps that I showed you before. Now, you council, you all actually knew this, and you chose to ignore it. And I cannot say why that is, because I watched the July 26th meeting, and maybe it was because the right way takes a lot of time, and maybe it's because it would give the citizens a choice in the matter, or maybe it was money. Because on the July 26th meeting, Mayor Barnes said that all it would take was 60 signatures. That's how I figured that out. Only would take 60 signatures for us to petition a vote on it, and it would cost the city $6,000 to $8,000. I mean, I don't know how much these things cost, but I'd imagine that a lawsuit dealing with constitutional rights would probably cost the city a lot more than that. So lastly, let me bring up just a couple more things about this. Okay? Let's talk about our current city code. Okay? 301, city code, doesn't include the chief of police in there. It says it just includes the city attorney, municipal judge, fire chief, and other such officers. So one of the arguments against that from up here, sitting up here, is, well, we've been following this city code, so we just adapted Charter Ordinance number 9 to deal with what we've been doing. But if you guys have been paying attention, you know the reason why our city code has no leg to stand on in this argument. In fact, it's completely irrelevant. That's right, because charter ordinances control and prevail over any prior or subsequent act of the governing body. These are the exact words from the Constitution. So in our case, our city code book is that subsequent act, and obviously Charter Ordinance number 9 prevails. This also applies to governing body handbook, police chief job description. If you wanted to make changes, you knew what needed to be done. Whether it was in 2008 or now, you knew how our charter ordinances needed to be changed. If you honestly still don't believe me, think to yourself, if all of this that has been done is reviewed by a revisor of the state, say maybe at the Attorney General's office, which do you think they would say rules? Section, let's see, what section are we talking about? Section or Article 12, Section 5 of the Kansas Constitution, or Code 301 in the Marysville Code Book? The Kansas Constitution or the governing body handbook of Marysville, Kansas? So let's talk about this court case that many of you saw. Thank you, Mayor Barnes, for posting that on Facebook and explaining why using an ordinary ordinance to change a charter ordinance is just fine in the eye of the law. Okay? Also knew about that. did a lot of reading about this one as well. And in this case, yes, the Kansas Supreme Court said, Wichita, you did the right thing. You passed an ordinary ordinance and you changed your charter ordinance, and that was okay. But let me tell you why that was okay. If you take the time to research and find Wichita's charter ordinance, which I did, you're going to see that Wichita did exactly what the Kansas Constitution requires. They designated specifically what they meant to do, what they were repealing, and it contained the substitute and additional provisions. Just so everybody knows, this has to do with court costs. That's how this got to the Supreme Court, was somebody was upset with the court costs they were assessed, and they said that the city of Wichita passed a regular charter ordinance, or regular ordinary ordinance, changed their charter ordinance about the court costs. And they did say that they did it right. Let me show you why. This is Wichita's charter ordinance number 224, okay? If you look in this purple box, look how specific this is. They were exempting themselves from 13 Kansas statutes addressing court costs, okay? Just about court costs. Do you see what they've done here? They were able to make provisions and change with an ordinary ordinance because they specified their intent. This charter ordinance is 17 pages long. This is half of the first page. That is how specific Wichita was with this charter ordinance. 17 pages long. So it seems pretty plausible that they meant to repeal something by implication in 17 pages of information. You'll see at the bottom of their first page, they put, the cost shall be assessed in our code book. They said they're going to put them in their code book. So when they did that later with a regular ordinance, it was documented in their charter ordinance, okay? They specifically stated what they're going to do. 17 pages long, okay? So let's look at Marysville Charter Ordinance number 18. Okay? This is what it looks like. That is what we're exempting ourselves from. The procedure for considering mayoral appointments. That's right, denying, not having to give a reason to deny the mayoral appointment. There's no provisions. There's no amendments. Nothing. This is like probably less than 25% of a page, as opposed to Wichita's 17-page specific ordinance. So I would probably stop using that court case to compare yourself, because it is not comparable. Let's hear it from Mike Heim. He's the Kansas Senior Assistant Reviser of the Statutes in our state of Kansas. He's also on the House of Representatives Committee for Local Government. And he says exactly what I just showed you. He brings up that court case. That's actually how I figured this out and had to go to the case. The reason the ordinary ordinance in Wichita was allowed to change the charter ordinance is because the city specifically stated in the charter ordinance their intentions of putting the court costs in the code book. Does anyone here feel that charter ordinance number 18 specified the intent to write out all personnel information in our code book? Does anybody feel, that charter ordinance number 18 specifically, explicitly said it was meant to repeal charter ordinance number 9? Mike adds that a charter ordinance exempting a city from a statute followed by these are his exact words, trailer ordinary ordinance, which would be exactly what was done here, is not in line with the Kansas Constitution. So, in summary, Ordinance 1900 violates the Kansas Constitution. A huge mistake was made this summer. And part of me does not fault you for your negligence, because somehow a lot of you were likely given some misinformation. Whether that was intentional or whether it was an accident, I can't tell you that. But maybe you didn't have the hours upon hours upon hours in the middle of the night to read legal documents. But it's been brought to your attention now. And you can do what is right now. When you know better, you do better. You now know better. I can't help but question who brought this to the table. Who should have known better and chose not to? To be clear, I am not telling you that you cannot take away that 5 council votes. I'm not telling you that. You are welcome to change things of the way that Marysville deals with the hiring and terminating of those positions, however you see is right for our city. If you feel that it needs to be done, then you will repeal 1900 and do it correctly. Because if you are doing your civil duty in these seats, you should care about the constitutional rights of your constituents. And you should follow the code of ethics, charging you to put personal issues aside and make decisions for the long-term benefit of the public. If you as council feel inclined to repeal Charter Ordinance number 9, then by all means, do it. But do it correctly and in line with the Kansas Constitution. Pass a new charter ordinance. Because if you truly did not have an agenda, if you truly were not targeting one person with this legislature, 60 days would not matter to you. The right to petition would not matter to you. It wouldn't. So you know what? Tonight, take action. The constitutional rights of your constituents have been denied, and you can make it better. Someone should truly make a motion to repeal Ordinance 1900, because now you cannot say you did not know better. I gave this to you last week. You cannot say that you did not know. Every single thing I put up there is straight out of the Kansas Constitution. So if anyone feels inclined to make a motion, I would encourage you to do so.
Put back the one about Mike Heim.
If you don't mind putting that back on with Mike, the slide you had for Mike Heim.
Near the end.
Yes.
The line that crossed out, just point out, line that's crossed out, a separate ordinance was passed, the establishing court cost, and that was the issue of the case. But I just want to point that out, but I want to go to my slides. Is that okay?
I got it.
First,
Do you want me to upgrade?
Let me connect.
did you get my PowerPoint?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Okay.
But if anybody does have questions, I'd be happy to answer them as well.
Proceed, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, you
Okay. Administrator, if you could put up the slides.
If you have Wi-Fi, I can pull it up from the agenda and plug back in.
Here we go.
There it is.
Got it. One second. I can see it, and then this is what I needed.
Okay. Thought that'd be bigger. Okay. First, I would like to tell everybody, I represent the city of Marysville. I do not represent an individual member. I do not represent an employee. I don't represent the mayor individually. I don't represent the city administrator. I represent the city of Marysville as a whole. I'm not here to editorialize or argue with anyone. I'm here to present the legal position the city has taken. And I would point out, the matter is under negotiations that we're all talking about, and that the presentation will not delve into personnel matters. But I want the first slide.
The click share is really slow. I apologize.
One more.
Yeah, it's going.
You had it up a moment ago.
I know. It's on my phone, it just talks really slow.
Would it be faster to pull it up from the computer, maybe?
That's why that's out there for her.
Alright.
Instead of us being able to use it up here.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, done.
Yeah.
All right.
John?
Okay, thank you. I pulled this case up, I wanted to highlight it, and it's a very important case. I just want to point out, this is a Kansas Supreme Court case. They determine the constitutionality, that's what courts are there for. What's unique about this is that the Supreme Court grabbed this from the Court of Appeals. How often does that happen? Rare, and if you're hoping that to happen, slim to none that ever happen. So I don't want to trivialize this, say it's a $100 court cost. It's more important than that. But it answers the question whether or not changes or substitute provisions can be made by ordinary ordinance after a city opts out of a statutory scheme. Now, if you recall the one ordinance about the city of Wichita's ordinance, it said amendments there too. Yeah, they're going to make amendments. Court costs do not stay stagnant, and it's a mechanism within the internal administration of a city to recover its costs. So yeah, they're going to make these changes through ordinary ordinance. But I think it's important here, and I'd just like to read it, what the Supreme Court of Kansas said. City properly employed a charter ordinance to exercise its home rule authority to opt out of a state statute. It had a constitutional right to reject the state regulation in favor of local control. It is not required to duplicate its charter ordinance effort when it adopted an ordinary ordinance to provide further particulars. That's what happened in this case. It's not the charter ordinance itself. The Supreme Court concluded, now this is something that diverges from the presentation you just heard. The powers and authority granted to cities under Article 12, Section 5 are to be construed for the purpose of giving to cities the largest measure of self-government. So if a city wants to determine the internal mechanisms, the internal workings, it can opt out. Now, there are certain reasons you can do that. The reasons weren't necessarily clear stated in the presentation, but this case is a very important case. And I pointed out how the Supreme Court grabbed it. I want to point out who the parties are. Now, the plaintiff hired Morris Lang. That's a huge firm out of Wichita, Kansas City, Topeka. It's a state, it may even be national. The plaintiff is also represented by another firm out of Pratt. They're a well-respected firm. Now, on the other side, we have 3 city attorneys from Wichita, 3 of them. And then one is, people always ask, well, where's the league? Where's the league? Well, the League of Municipalities joined in and supported the city of Wichita. Sandy Giacono, Don Mueller did an amicus brief in support of the city's position. Holy cow. And then Robert Watson, city attorney of Overland Park, intervened, did amicus. Now, that's another big city. Why would they be intervening in a $100 court cost case? I don't want to trivialize this case. And they're represented by Stinson Morris Hacker. Back then, this was an international firm. And then, in addition, they had another firm helping them. Kutak Rock. Holy cow, that's a large firm. That's out of Missouri, their headquarters, but it's across the nation. So I want to point out, you've probably got $25,000 tied up in legal fees, and we're talking, if we're going to trivialize this, say it's a $100 court case? No, the principle here is important. That's why the Supreme Court grabbed. And the principle just laid it out. How can a city change its internal mechanism once you opt out of a statutory scheme? You do it by ordinary ordinance. So it begs the question, how many times do you have to opt out? I appreciate the fact of being transparent, but I don't think it's required. You opt out once, you're out. And then opt in, how do you get back in? Do you charter out to get back in? That doesn't make sense. You have to do an ordinary ordinance to go back in. So if I go to the next slide. If the city clerk would correct me if I'm wrong on this one. I'm going by the dates.
Oh.
Do you mind if I make a comment about that while we're waiting?
Well,
Of
we
slides?
were all patient. We didn't introduce.
Oh, I'm happy to wait. I'm just trying to use our time wisely here. It's just fine.
Technology is great when it works.
Great when it
Yeah.
works.
Exactly. I don't need, before I go to the next slide, I need to point out this, and Terry's looking over my shoulder, I'll give this to you afterwards. It's just how important this Frahall case is. In 2015, guess who was looking at it? It was the Kansas legislature. And it was the Legislative Research Department put this nice little memo together. And if you go through it, they talk about how to change a charter ordinance and when it's, what the difference is between an ordinary ordinance and charter. And it falls in line with what I'm just telling you, what my presentation will follow. But in 2015, you got 2007 case, you got 2015 legislature saying this is what it is. At least the legislative department was agreeing with what I'm telling you today. But I know you often look at my stuff, and I'll give it to you.
I don't need it.
All right, okay. What the next ordinance, slide is, it's the appointment section prior to the 2011 city code, and I believe it was I found it in the blue book, which is a 1985 version, is that right? 1985? And that's a product of a charter ordinance. So back 1985, we have one version of what that council believed to be the appropriate mechanism for governing the internal workings of the city. And I'll go on to the third one, which is the, I think you're going to be catching up.
Yeah, there's, if you can keep going through it.
The third slide is the current 2011 version, which made it official, adopting within the city structure of the Kansas at will doctrine, and it gives an appointment process in there. And what's important about 2011, the appointment procedure was changed. In particular, police chief was removed as appointed officer. The police chief was employee subject to section 1-317 employment will. There are no special provisions with respect to the term of the office of police chief. And then, I know last time we had a question about the clerk. I threw the treasurer in there, that's slide 4. And they're simply different creatures. The city treasurer is actually elected, and the city clerk also has similar statutory duties, which the governing body cannot supplant. So this body cannot pass a charter ordinance to deviate from their responsibilities. But thank you. and they are bonded. They have a bond, a fidelity bond, which requires faithful performance.
City treasurer.
Yeah, all right, there you go.
Yeah, that's better.
All right, now I'm going to move on to the next one. Ordinance 1900. You know, this reinforces a city organization, internal organization. And I call it now, maybe a better way to look at it is a Humpty Dumpty law. You got a department head and said, I can't be held accountable by the city administrator. What can you do to fix this? We want people to work, be responsible, be accountable. That's my understanding of the city council. It's also my understanding of the city council that they've entrusted this duty of supervision to the city administrator. They have provided resources, they have provided procedures for the city administrator, and they want the city administrator to make these calls on a day-to-day basis. And so that's the purpose of this. Yeah, did it need to pass it? Probably not. But to get over the hump, stop this internal, well, can't use that word, can I? Sorry. BS. Get on with life. You got to be accountable. That's what this is. You got to be accountable. And so I would like to move on to policy 886. This was adopted in 2020, and it once again reinforces the idea that employees are going to be supervised by the city administrator, including the police chief. So 2020, that was the aim. That handbook, once again, is published by the governing body. No, excuse me, was enacted by the governing body or passed, and it was, the source is the Kansas League of Municipalities. It says all personnel actions and duties are responsibility of the city administrator. City is responsible for hiring, discipline, promotion, demotion, and firing all city employees. Now I realize this was prompted not necessarily by the police chief, but prompted by council members going to crime scenes, going to accident scenes, and giving orders, pulling city employees off city projects. And that's the role of the city administrator. I mean, that's not the role for the council or the mayor, and the city administrator is squarely in charge of that, making sure those jobs are carried out. Next, I want to come to the police chief description. If you could put that up. The first sentence of that police description, we do have a complete copy around here. Under the supervision of the city administrator, the police chief is exempt position that plans and directs activities. Exempt means it's a management position. This was in effect since 2012. Did somebody ask who drafted this? Who prepared this?
So, yeah.
It was a chief then in 2012. And if I recall, the chain of command is that you submit it to the city administrator, and then the city council would eventually approve it. So this position description, 2012 was approved. So, kind of begs the question, from 2012 to 2021, it really wasn't a question. 2020, after 9 years, no question really. 2020, same, no real question. So what happened in 2021? Well, it's not like a surprise. The 2012 police chief knew who was supervising. No ifs, ands, or buts. It's the guy who even drafted it said so. So the position was described and acknowledged. So question is, what happened? Did some type of dream come about, or somebody got held accountable? But the reason they want the administrator, as I understand the council's position, is you want to have these positions accountable to somebody. The city council adopts the policies, has certain expectations, and it wants those policies to be carried out. The internal workings is up to the discretion of the city council. I know the proposal here was, we basically rescind 1-301, rescind the employment will doctrine, rescind the legal description, and rescind your employee handbook, and so forth. Well, the council does have that authority. I mean, that is a political decision. It would be reflective of your decision-making authority to govern the internal mechanisms of the city. Now, you'd have to then draft the ordinance to what you want to replace it by. You don't fall back automatically to the old statutory scheme. You got to come up with something. If you want to enact the ordinance, put it back to the old statutory scheme, that's fine. But then, once again, the mayor has those appointments. And so, that's kind of the status of the law as I see it, as I think the council believes represents the situation. Like I said, I don't represent anybody. I represent the body as a whole. I'm giving you my best estimate, best opinion, especially the Frog case. I don't know how you get around that. If that, there's nothing, I've seen no cases to supplant that or overrule that. And so I have seen an AG opinion where they say charter orders can allow a fire marshal file things in city court.
You saw what?
AG opinion. I like to see the AG opinion where the AG opinion says, yeah, the city council can allow a fire marshal file a charge in city court. The statutory scheme doesn't allow that. Once again, the internal mechanisms was done to allow that. And then that could always be changed through ordinance to allow further discussion. So, Ms. Mayor, I have nothing further. And it's,
I do, if that's all right. If you don't mind me just
what do you have?
commenting on something that.
I didn't think we'd have rebuttal.
Well, no, we didn't at first.
I don't, does anybody up there want to hear what I have to say or not? Because if you don't, then I would love to just say that I'm not refuting that the decision of the Supreme Court. In fact, I brought that up. But please nod your head if you see a difference in the way that the Wichita Charter Ordinance was written and ours. 17 pages of things that they were addressing specifically. And the Kansas Constitution says you have to specifically explain what you are repealing. And that is, and I'm also, we're not here to talk about the police chief description. We're not here to talk about what happened with Chief Ackerman. I'm talking about what happened to me as a Marysville citizen, that I didn't get the opportunity to petition a vote on a change in the charter ordinance. And I'm not saying you can't, absolutely. If you guys think that was the right thing to do, then please do it. But do it correctly. And I think that we have differing opinions on that, but that case, absolutely. It said that you can change things with an ordinary ordinance, but you still have to do it in line with the Constitution and be explicit with it. It also states that each charter ordinance can only deal with one subject matter. And we saw that the two different statutes on those two different charter ordinances makes it very difficult to think that one implied the repeal of the other one. So I honestly charge you to do something correctly. Do it. I agree. If our code book, if our charter ordinance is no longer reflective of our code book, then yeah, repeal it and make a new one. Do it correctly. You guys knew when you brought up, I could have done a charter ordinance, was said at the July meeting. You know, we have differing opinions. I have contacted a state representative and a senator about this, who were both very alarmed by it, and was more than happy to push it to the Attorney General's desk. But I believe that you guys can fix it before we get there. And then repeal it, and then go about the right way and give us our constitutional rights.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Terry.
I would like to ask one question, the subject matter that we're here. I would like to be, I've gone through all of this and I've studied it. I would like to have it explained to me how us opting out of 18 and then creating 1900 and doing this, how it leaves Charter Ordinance number 9 has never been hurt. It's still there. And reading your information and your information, to me, Charter Ordinance has never been addressed yet. It's still in force.
It does prevail. I mean, the Constitution says that.
That's the way I look at it.
I guess we're missing the point here. You exempt out, then you change with your ordinary ordinance. Now, I'll just read from the legislative research bulletin. The third instance where involves they go through three ways you can do a ordinary home rule ordinance, and the third is involves situations where either uniform or non-uniform enabling or permissive legislation exists, but the city chooses not to utilize the available state legislation, instead acts under home rule. So the subsequent acts, the particulars, can be changed. The core costs in particular, even though the slide that Ms. Anderson presented said amendments there too. So I've gone through several cities now that up their core costs to recover the actual cost of administering justice. So you don't put it back up on a charter ordinance. Once once you're out, you're out. And so
Of that ordinance, what about there's two charter ordinances we're
no,
talking
you're not out of the ordinance. You charter out of the statutory scheme.
Which one are you talking about, 18 or 9?
I'm talking about 1985 when they first chartered out.
That would be 8.
Okay, so
8.
that'd be charter
Once
number
you're out,
9?
you're out.
So
That would be 8.
charter number
Let
8
me
and then
finish
charter
here.
number 9.
Once you're out, you're out. And so how to get back in, you got to do an ordinary ordinance to put you back into the statutory scheme. That's the only way. You don't charter
by
out.
implication.
Well, I don't know how other ways to do it.
So what
Once you're
exactly
out, you're
does it
out.
mean that the charter ordinance prevails? What exactly does that mean then?
Why don't we let him explain this, and then we'll go from there.
The charter ordinance says you're out of the statutory scheme. That prevails. As simple as that. There's nothing fancy about this or magical. It's exactly what the Supreme Court said. Now, one thing I forgot to mention about the Ordinance 1900. I think I told you the courts determined constitutionality. Well, if there was a aggrieved person, why not have the courts address it? A simple court proceeding you take up before the court. There's a statutory provision, 60-2101, allows for that precisely to be done. So we're now in a position, we're in negotiations, and we're kind of fixed in to what our statutory scheme is. So,
Then we no longer have any charter ordinances that are in effect.
No, that's not right, Terry.
the charter ordinance, the purpose was to exempt out from the statutory scheme. The city has successfully done that. And do you have to do it more than one occasion? Not really. Can you do it for transparency? Absolutely. No harm, no foul. Now, I point out the liquor one. That's more tricky. That's dicey. That's legislative. I think the key here, especially the courts, is the internal workings of the city. You guys manage a city. This is how you want it run. And so you set up your own internal working, your internal scheme.
We
Now,
asked
look-
for a vote for that one.
Even back in 1985, yeah.
Yes.
They wanted to do their own thing. That's been the history. They like the local government, they like local control.
They wanted the people to vote on that too.
But, well, they're out. They're exact, so we don't get to vote multiple times. I mean,
I
it
understand.
doesn't make sense to do that. But I understand why somebody would do the charter ordinance upon charter ordinance for transparency. But once you're out, you're out. Now, the city had a bunch of stuff, and why this is important is all those statutes were at play. And so if you say that home rule power or charter ordinance doesn't work, all those statutes are thrown out the window. And that's why Overland Park, the League of Municipalities are all involved in this case. They don't want to turn the local government on its ear.
Well, I personally didn't see it that way, but I sure would have liked when I asked if we maybe got an opinion from the Attorney General. But everybody didn't want to do that, the meeting that you weren't at.
And why didn't we want to do that?
It was
Okay, how do you do
time.
an AG opinion?
Right.
They're gonna pull this case, all right? They're gonna pull legislative history. Huh. Well, you certainly can do it, but you're obligated not to sandbag the Attorney General. You gotta point this out. And then I've asked for an AG opinion, and I put my legal authority, and I pointed out the one that I was, got an opinion was the county treasurer. And I said the county treasurer disagrees with this position of the city of Blue Rapids in that case. And what the Attorney General do? They called the county treasurer, and they talked to her about it. So you can't sandbag, but I laid out the statutory authority. It was an interpretation of a statute where it said the city has a choice of collecting demolition costs. They could sue the person personally, or they have choice, not mutually exclusive, or they can refer it to the county treasurer to collect the tax rolls, or by both. And so what the city of Blue Rapids did is said, hey, we found out, we know where this guy is, and he has a job, we're suing him. And we collected on demolition costs. Those are kind of bragging rights, because as you know, it's almost impossible to do that. The city county treasurer said, hey, give us the money. And I said, no, we collected just like the statute says. And so the question was statutory interpretation. We didn't want to upset the treasurer, but it was a legitimate argument. Does or mean exclusive, or means or? And so the Attorney General looked at both sides, and they looked at the statutes. They didn't ignore them. They're kind of boxed in. And they found in favor of the city, well, that wasn't found. Their opinion was, yeah, you're right. The statute says you have a choice, and you're not excluded by anything. Now, the other one was Frankfurt asked for an opinion, and it was on whether or not the city could take city money and invest it in equity markets. Well, that was the statute's crystal clear on that, but there was enough political pressure, though they said, go ahead and do that. And they went down and asked for an AG opinion. And I got a letter 2 years later saying, you gotta be kidding, don't be asking the stupid questions.
So it took you 2 years to get the Attorney General's opinion?
Yeah, and it was blunt, that blunt, you know. You got the statute, you know the statute is, you can't be investing city monies in equity markets.
Well, I think we have a differing opinion. I mean, I'll be happy to pursue this further at the state level.
There's been a differing opinion, and that's why I brought it to council originally. I mean,
Correct.
you gotta understand the situation I'm in as mayor. I've got a code book that got adopted in 2011 that states how the pyramid of authority works and whether or not certain positions are appointed. I also have an employee job description that was written at that time that coincides with that code book. Then I have a governing body handbook that we adopted that in 2020 that also corresponds with those two things. Then I've got a charter ordinance hanging out there that says something else. So I asked for legal opinion. And legal opinion was, that's moot. That charter ordinance is not in effect. We're following those other three policies. To which I said, okay. I still had a disagreement between certain parties. So I said, well, I guess we take it to council, and council can decide. Because they can either amend the code book and the job description and the policy or the governing body handbook, or they can change that charter ordinance. And the opinion was that we do not have to pass a charter ordinance to change a charter ordinance. So we had a charter ordinance drawn up. It was voted on this body. It was a 4-4 split. Now, I don't hardly ever get a vote. On this one, I did. And if you followed me, my general opinion on everything is I like to give authority to the council. I don't like to have all the authority at the mayor's position. I like to give authority back to the council, whether that's superintending authority or whether that is appointments. Because the problem with appointments is I know there's been an argument that if you have appointments that the council controls that. They don't. I'm the one that nominates them. I can nominate somebody that all 8 of these people up here hate, and they can vote against it. I can nominate another person that they hate. If it's not an appointed position and they have to apply for that job, then guess what? This council gets to be part of that conversation along with the city administrator and look at the applications and decide who is best fitted for that job, instead of just one person, me, deciding. I have always tried, like with the governing body handbook, we had a discrepancy between the previous mayor and council, and it said that the mayor had superintending authority over all of the, what did it say, the activities of the, whatever it said. But basically, we had an issue where we had an administrator and we also had a mayor that would say, no, I get to decide that. And so I took it to council, we passed a governing body handbook, and we stripped that power away from the mayor and took away that discrepancy that we had between our governing body handbook that we had not adopted yet, we were handed out when we got on council, our code book, and then we had a League of Municipalities handbook too. And they all stated the same thing. So we adopted the governing body handbook and consolidated all that and stripped power from me and gave it back to the governing body. So you have to understand where I'm coming from. This is not a new, the stuff that you're bringing up is not a new argument. We've been arguing about this for 4 months at least. Well, probably 4 months. It's been a long time.
Okay.
Why did council change that in 2011? You'd have to ask them. I mean, all the laws and everything in that code book, most of it came up because of a problem with the previous council. When they opted out of the appointments, obviously there must have been an issue with the mayor that was appointing people that council was not a fan of. So they didn't want to have to sit there and specifically state why they would not approve that appointment. They wanted to just be able to vote no and not air it out in the open and just say we voted against it, and then the mayor nominates somebody else. So you have to understand where I'm coming from on this. I mean,
I do, but
I've
you have to
explained
understand
it,
where
but-
I'm coming from, that I feel that my constitutional rights have been denied to me and every person in this room. And I believe that you should be a little more concerned about that than anything else that you're talking about whether, I mean, the Constitution says a charter ordinance can only be repealed or amended by another charter ordinance. And I don't know why you think this supersedes that. And there's no reason not to repeal this and do it correctly unless you're scared about that revealing something else. Because if you repeal this and do it correctly, then the time shouldn't matter. But I'm going to leave it up to you guys. Like I said, I'll be happy to pursue it further. I just wish I wouldn't have to do that.
Okay,
Thank you for your help.
thank you.
Is it all right with you if I say one more thing? I am not the bright and shining star that many of you are. I think
We're
sensibly.
past public comment. We're
But
planning
can I
on visiting
please
this.
say something?
Well, you've had,
This is
2 other
America's
times.
second time I've spoken, and I would like to say, I don't know what Todd did that was so horrible that any of you even hired him in the first place. I don't know if he did something personal, or you don't like him for some reason, or you don't like him for another, but I think you are losing a very, very, very good man, and I hope to God he's got a good lawyer, and I hope to God he sues this city for everything it's worth, and even if I have to pay.
all right.
So on this ordinance, if we desired to repeal it and reinstate, we'd have to re-adopt the previous scheme, is that correct?
Well, you need to decide what that's going to be. It's really 2 steps, maybe the mayor can explain.
Let me just read this. The city council has heard the public comments. The city council should not discuss the details of personnel or any confidential personnel information. However, the city council can debate how things are done internally. To the point, for example, number 1, is there a motion to direct the city attorney to prepare an ordinance to rescind appointment procedures set forth in current code sections 1-301 and 1-317, vacate policy number A86, and modify the position description for the chief of police? So you basically would have to not only rescind that ordinance, you would also have to change that code book that doesn't align with it. You'd also have to rewrite your employee job description, and you'd also have to repeal or amend that governing body handbook that we adopted.
Why do all those things must be done?
Because they're
to
not in
correct?
alignment with that charter ordinance.
Okay, so move.
Which, of the opinion, I mean, the opinion was, of the legal counsel, we didn't have to do anything because those were already what we were following, was the code book, not that charter ordinance.
Okay, well, then yes, I so move.
Okay.
You move what?
I move to rescind the, the code, the numbers, I don't have them in front of me.
Well, you can't move, you'd have to move to have the attorney draw
Okay,
up.
I move to have the attorney draw up an ordinance rescinding the job description, fixing the employee handbook, and removing the code, is it
1-301 and 1-317,
1-301 through 1-307?
policy 886.
Policy 886.
Say 86.
So the entirety of all of those.
Whatever it takes to fix it.
You need to repeal the ordinance 1900 to fix it.
No, that won't
Attorney
fix
saying
it.
that won't fix it.
Because that was the initial problem, is it is in contradiction to 3 other things that have been
You
passed.
have to
what-
look at the original charter ordinance, which is 8, which is the original one that exempted us out of all of it. And I think you should look at that first.
Let the attorney,
right,
let the
exactly.
attorney
So,
draw it up.
okay, then the attorney can come back to us with that.
Yes, I think you have to go all the way back to 8, not 9.
Okay.
Because 9 was just a section of what they had exempted out of before.
If that will solve the constitutional conundrum, then that's the motion I make.
Well, there is no constitutional conundrum.
Well, the
Supreme
perceived
Court-
constitutional.
I know you don't like the Supreme Court's decision, but
No.
it's on point.
I do not have an opinion on the Supreme Court's opinion, but I do have an opinion on what the public sees and what they feel and what they think is happening. And that's ultimately who we serve, is these people, and then I'm worried about the Constitution.
Okay, so I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any further discussion about this?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Terry?
could we also include something, not to amend it or nothing else, but to include, so we get a lot of other things straightened out, this, in our city code book where it states the mayor's appointments in April should have been changed a long time ago.
And they
Because-
were.
Huh?
Part of it was, and they will be again.
It's not in the book that way.
Right.
I haven't gotten anything.
It was in that other charter ordinance, and they told us, well, when you take appointment, when you take seat.
But the mayor's appointments, yeah.
We're gonna have a new charter ordinance then.
What are we
I
voting
mean, a
on?
new ordinance.
Drafting and.
Having them
Drafting.
draft something up that would repeal or rescind 1900 and also would correct everything else and turn that back to an appointed position again. And also would give a lot of
Do
power.
you want it?
Well, I think so,
And then
right?
it would what?
You want to?
That's the second, would be the second part is,
Yes.
do you want to,
Say that now.
any direction on the next ordinance would be to impose establish a procedure.
We need to get the power back to the county.
That's what I say, Terry, though, by appointments, are you necessarily giving power to the council?
Giving it to the council,
You're giving power to the mayor, is who you're giving it to.
yeah.
We get a vote on
But
it
even-
anyway.
even
You
if
vote
that's-
on it,
Now
but
we
you don't
our
pick
vote's
who.
no
I
good.
mean,
Even if that's the case, though, the mayor is an elected position.
It is.
So a direct representative of the people,
yes,
correct?
yes.
So,
Then the next thing is, do you want to set, what terms? I mean, there's some appointments I do that are 1 year, some are 2 years, some are
And that can be cleaned
definitely.
up.
Yes.
Because that's, a lot of the reason why they took those appointments away was because council didn't want to have a mayor come in there and basically clean house on them.
But see, here's the thing,
'Cause
the
you
mayor
could.
can't clean house unless the council consents. So,
If it's an appointed
Realistically.
position that's for a term, then when that term expires, then the mayor nominates somebody to fill that position.
Right, but nominated with the consent of the council. So ultimately, it still goes to the council.
Ultimately, it doesn't have to nominate who you want either.
Yeah.
Well,
there's
true,
nothing says that-
but then the
yeah.
position doesn't go filled, and then they suffer repercussions.
Then you're at
It's
a
checks and,
stalemate.
it's checks and
Stalemate.
balances. We're the check in this situation. I've been through a lot of mayors. I've been through
Yes.
like 2 cities, 6 mayors. I'm gonna say that's not my biggest concern. My biggest concern is that the people feel like their voices are most closely represented. And if they feel like that's being taken away, then what are we doing here? Because that's, I mean, if people don't feel they have a voice in democracy, then they in fact don't have a voice in democracy.
So the voice of democracy is every time we have a new council and then the mayor doesn't like one of our city managers or they don't like the head of a department, we're gonna have this constant flip and volatility in here that isn't here now, but it's okay with you to have that. So we go through department heads, we go through different employees, we get the good old boy system back in here.
Ultimately, though, the people have the voice to make that choice because they get to elect or unelect or recall or not recall or whatever their elected officials. So if the mayor is doing something untoward, and you would hope people would realize that, and then that mayor would no longer have that position. There's a
But they will
system.
have the position for long enough for chaos to
You
ensue.
can do a lot of damage in 2 years.
You know, it's true, and you can do a lot of damage in 6
You know,
months.
what we're doing now is, you're doing this to get them off your back. What we're looking forward to
No.
is to take care of the
No,
whole city.
here's the thing, I'm not saying we're not trying to take care of the city, and I'm not saying there's malfeasance at this table, and I'm not saying anybody's doing anything they think to sink this city by any means. And I'm not doing this to get people off our back. I've had a lot of people on my back for a lot of years, for a lot of reasons, some of them good, some of them crap, and I don't care about that. None of us should be, that should be our biggest concern. My biggest concern is that people are losing their faith. And whether that's right or it's wrong, whatever their reasons are, if people don't have faith that they're being heard, and they're being listened to, and the system's working for them, regardless of whether it is or it isn't. But if they don't have the faith, then what's it matter? We need to get that faith back. And that's not easy, and it's not smooth, and there's gonna be mad people. You know you're doing the right thing when somebody's mad, okay? But I'm saying, I think reverting to a previous scheme, cleaning up any kind of legal details we need to, is the long-run good decision, because it wasn't necessarily broken, but it sure as hell is broken now.
There's other ways to do it besides this.
Transparency can help.
Why do we have this man here then?
Which man are you pointing at?
Sid John McNish.
Well, no, to
Exactly.
give us an opinion.
He was here and brought this to us.
Sure, he sure did.
Don't we normally respect the,
Oh, I respect his opinion. I respect my wife's opinion, but I don't do everything she tells me to do. I do. I thank John for his service. I bar none, I've never said otherwise. John's a brilliant man. And I don't disagree with his opinions.
well, it
On
sounds to me
everything.
like you are right now.
No,
This is a political decision, not necessarily. I give you the
he
legal
himself
position.
said it's a political decision.
Exactly.
But
and
it's the
political
legal position I've laid out for you is that there's nothing wrong with that code.
Exactly.
And if you want, it depends who you want if you want somebody supervised or not supervised.
There's-
If you want somebody accountable or not accountable.
There's nothing legalistically wrong with it, but there's something politically wrong with it because it doesn't help people be invested in their system. So what I'm trying to solve here isn't a legal problem. What I'm trying to solve here is a people problem, a political problem, a governance problem. That's the way I look at it. And you can disagree, and you can vote otherwise. I'll still respect you. That's fine.
Yep.
But that's the way I look at it. And that's the way I want to act as a councilman, and that's me.
I just point out that, employment decisions, personnel matters are treated confidentially, and that's been brought out publicly, and you can only do so much to talk about it. When you have internal procedures to get it aired out up through the council to hear these matters, and those procedures are not followed, and so, what do you do? That's really the issue.
See your motion.
There's been a motion and a second.
So I'd like to know exactly, so if we vote yes, that means John's gonna draft a new charter ordinance.
No,
No.
we're gonna
No.
draft an ordinance saying that, the 2011 code book is gonna be changed. And then on the next question is, what do you want me to change it to?
I was gonna say, what are we gonna change it to? What change do we want?
To stay the same way it is.
Well, it seems like council for years has been amending that code book to what they thought how they wanted the government to work. We've made changes too, like I say, we pulled a lot of power away from the mayor, and we wanted to do that, and I supported that. And what I found from, going back is it appears that a lot of times there's a problem within council. Then a new council takes over and they fix what they perceive to be the problems of the previous council. Whether if they had a mayor that maybe was overstepping the authority, or maybe they had appointments that they did not agree with, and they would change the code book to what they wanted. Council can change it to anything they want to. I'm of the opinion that it's gotten changed to where it needs to be. I don't think you want to give all that power back to the mayor again. I would think the council would want to keep that, but I've been on that side of it, and I would want to keep it if I was a council member. Yeah, but there has been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Roll call?
Pipia,
No.
Fry,
Yes.
Stroller,
No.
Hughes,
Yes.
Bikeman,
Yes.
Price,
No.
Barron's,
No.
Throm. No.
Okay,
Motion fails.
3-5.
Guys, appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Welcome.
You all deserve to just fucking leave and not come back.
That's,
No.
yeah.
I'm not a hipper too.
Well,
Listen,
you're running for council, and if you get up here, you're gonna have to listen to the gavel too by whoever is wielding the
I
thing.
understand that. But
Yes.
what you don't
We're not
seem to
open for
understand
public comment.
is you are sitting up there saying,
He's
well,
out
I
of
don't
order.
want the power. I
You're,
don't
you're,
want the
you're
power."
out of
Out of
order.
order.
You're out of
I know
order.
I am, and that's fine, so arrest me.
Well, then-
But you take it from him and you give it to him.
Please leave so we can continue on with city business.
Damn business.
If we can't have we've had a rational debate.
Rational, there's nothing rational about anything you
Well,
guys are
there
doing.
was until a minute ago.
No, there wasn't.
Okay.
I do have a question for John, though. In your personal opinion, did you think that we had to change anything to begin with?
My
Was the-
personal opinion,
Yeah,
I don't
was the
have a
system
personal
ever
opinion.
broke?
It's a
I mean, it was
political
working
opinion.
It's a
fine.
professional.
My legal opinion, there's nothing, you can change if you
I-
want to, but there's nothing wrong with the 2011 code book.
I don't, I think I was on council at that time, and I cannot remember why we changed it. I absolutely cannot remember. But
2011,
as far as now, everything was working fine. I see no reason why we had to change it in the first place. That's just my opinion.
We didn't change, we tried to clarify it was all we were trying to
I mean,
do.
why did we have to have an ordinance 1900 to begin with?
Because there was a disagreement between certain parties over which policies
What
were in
agreement was
effect.
that? I had no agreements with anybody.
It wasn't you, it was other parties.
is a polite way of saying, we have a structure, follow it.
Bottom line to me, it just feels like somebody wanted a power struggle. That's my opinion.
Well, the legal opinion is we have a described description back in 2012. It wasn't a power grab all of a sudden, it was
Well, that's what it seems like
2012.
now.
Or is
How is
somebody
that?
being held accountable? That's kind of the issue.
That's just my opinion.
Well, you gotta have, a council could politically say, hey, we're gonna supervise these certain people. And certainly, you have every right to fire me tonight. I mean, that's the life of a city attorney. I understand that. It's it right there in the code book. Now, remember who was on the council then. I think your father was. Mr. Shipman was. I think they go back that far. Were you on back then? Okay.
No, you weren't on yet, Keith.
2012?
No, you were on 11.
11.
I got in late 11.
It was rewritten between, what, 9 and 11?
Todd?
You
were on? I think you were on.
I was brand new.
I think
Maybe Charlie Swineman.
Yep, Mr. Swinner was on there.
Philippi. Philippi.
William Philippi.
And maybe Tim Ackerman, maybe.
Yeah,
I
Tim
don't
was in the
remember.
mix back then.
My question is, what happened from 2012 to now that we had to change it?
What's I'm saying, we didn't change it.
We should.
I mean, why did we have to
Disagreement.
do an ordinance 1900 in the first place?
I was
That's just-
attempting,
that's-
I was attempting to bring it to council to clarify it and settle it for all, which policy we were following.
No. My opinion still stands.
Let's do Black Swan.
Okay. Kate Tomer with Black Squirrel Night, change of barricade location.
Okay, so the last time I was here, I did not have, on 8th Street, I have it extended to Center. So that was the only changes I need to make. Trail Life and Landall's football boys and the cheerleaders are all gonna be setting up in that kind of, the intersection of free CPA and Citizen State. I just wanted to make sure that was okay with you guys if we could extend it a little bit further. As far as everything else, it's the same. I didn't see that we need to make any other changes. Do you guys have any questions? I would say, and a little bit below that, I sent you guys 2 different maps. The other one is Footloose Answers will be right in front of them, a little bit, actually right in the middle of the intersection.
We didn't include both because we thought it was confusing.
Okay, yeah, no, that makes
And this
sense.
one was great with where you showed everybody gonna be exactly. We were just making the barricade go towards Center Street on 8. That
Right,
was the only difference.
yes. Yeah, I mean, other than that, everything was kind of the
That's the
same.
only thing we changed from their approved last
Right,
time.
right. Do you guys have any questions about that, though?
No.
I would say, all right, awesome. All right, well, that's it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Next up, we have the Blue River Trail Engineering Grant application. Hello.
Good evening, I'm Mike Welch. My residence locally here is 1101 Ann Street in Marysville. I have a little exception with the listing. Thank you for the listing and being able to be on the agenda, but it's really larger issue that I'd like to focus on than just the Blue River Trail engineering part. We have before us an opportunity to apply for a federal grant, and this is set up and focused on all of the things that appear to be needed in the 7th Street corridor upgrade, which does in fact include the river trail, but includes a lot of other problems and difficulties that local residents and local business owners and many organizations are very interested in improving. We have representatives here from several different businesses that are adjacent to that property. They're prepared to talk about why it is that this is a hazard and a challenge for them, for their continued business operations, to establish that there truly is a need to raise the level of importance and priority to get on with upgrading that 7th Street corridor. You know, we need to begin to move down that path where we're working toward the same kind of look and feel and betterment that you have on the south side of the Pony Express Depot. I actually live, permanent address is in Roswell, Georgia, a captive city in Atlanta. My father and our family home at 1101 has been in our family for 55 years. Graduated from high school here along with my wife and had very successful careers, and have returned to try to take care of him since we've moved him to assisted living. But the involvement that we've gotten into in the city here means that in the last 2 years, we've spent more time here in Marysville than we have in our own property in Atlanta. So one of the things that I have become personally involved with has been the depot and the restoration of that particular piece. And that's a piece that, as the first of the property owners, because I think that there are several other property owners or business owners that are going to want to talk, along with representatives of several of the organizations that represent probably upwards of 1,000 people of your residents here in Marysville, Kansas. So I'd like for you to listen to how important maybe those businesses are to your community, to your economics. I'd like for you to listen to the need of the problems that are being created on a property that you, the city, own, and take seriously this opportunity to apply for this grant to get the funding that could probably complete the entire thing. So let me talk a little bit just about the depot, and then we can get into more of the grant situations. So this is a listed National Historic Site, if you're not aware of that. Substantial architect by Gilbert Stanley Underwood. If you don't know the background on him, I invite all of you to come to a tour of the depot, because you're missing a lot of the real relevance and importance of this particular facility. The Marysville UP Historic Preservation Society, who is charged with managing and preserving this facility, is a 501(c) not-for-profit corporation. We're totally volunteer. No one gets a dime for any of their volunteer activities. We have 150 paid members that belong and contribute to the depot. In this year alone, we've had over 2,300 man-hours that have been volunteered to work on projects related to upgrading the depot. And there's probably double that, another 2,300, just in what our board contributes in planning and organizing and making sure that we have appropriately focused projects to help make that facility functional and useful and a contributor to the community. Our capital year approved budget for 2021 was about $75,000, all of it paid for with donations. And currently we're engaged in a couple of major infrastructure projects. One to upgrade the electrical to be able to handle now the functionality that we've been able to create over the past year of making that a useful part. And an HVAC system which will allow us to be able to expand the opportunity for more than just having facility events and so on only 4 months out of the year when it's tolerable to be in the building. So with all that, with only 4 months that we've had really to be able to operate and entertain guests or tourists or travelers, we've seen over 4,000 people come through the depot in that period of time. It's a significant piece. Now, we're impacted because the depot is part of the Main Street district, and yet we have a dirt road accessing our facility. It is on the doorstep of our community. It involves a intersection with Highway 36 and 77, which is unsafe and a concern of KDOT. You all know this information. I'm just not real sure why it is that it's lacked the priority to get some movement on upgrading it and making it kind of the facility and the attraction that's going to appeal to what I think are probably your priorities in the city of tourism and quality of life and education and things that are important to the city. So we suffer with, like you'll hear from probably a number of other people, not only the dust and dirt, but it gets into the systems and it's difficult. I don't know if there's a potential for someone filing a suit for silicosis because of the amount of dust that gets created and that kind of a problem. We suffer from water because it sounds like that your sewer system or stormwater systems are not adequate in that area. But we're constrained in thinking about how we can continue to develop the depot because we don't know, we can't predict what your plan could be ought to be, should be, for the development of that corridor. We don't want to disrupt that. We don't want to create something that's going to be in conflict with that. But we do need to see that there is some legitimate effort to try to put this back on the front burner and start making some progress. And particularly now that we have maybe a grant that we can apply for so that you don't have to worry about the financial piece. Now, part of the north side of the building is kind of an abandoned parking lot. That's scheduled to be torn up and replaced with green space, much like we did on the south side, which looks very nice, very attractive. I'm not sure why it is that the city has a caboose sitting across the 7th Street corridor from us. No reason for you to have that kind of a piece. That probably could be spotted on our side, and we could take care of it, maintain it for you, and make that part of the attraction. I think there's lots of things that we can do. We've talked about leaving a large area in the southeast corner of the building to create public restrooms so that as a trailhead stop, we can put restrooms, showers, lockers in there. If in fact part of the amenities of the upgrade system was to put in an RV park or RV parking so that you could have attachments there, you could pull them out of the city park, which I understood has been kind of an issue for some people, is let's get them out of there and put them someplace where they're a little better managed. There are additional grants for a lot of these things, including electric vehicle charging stations. All of these amendments need to come from a public-private partnership that our organizations and the businesses would like to establish with you so that we can move forward and identify what this is supposed to look like. We're not trying to dump this on you and on your lap. This is something that we can all work together on. I can speak for Jesse Edwards. He's the owner of the Napa Parts Facility. He sits right there on the intersection. He is going to be concerned. He was unable to be here tonight because of a death in his family. He is going to be concerned about parking and the ability to be able to move trucks in there. You may not know that besides this facility that he has here, he also has another outlet in Sabetha. And he uses this site as the storage and inventory marshaling for that facility. So this is one of those kind of critical people that he's kind of stuck in a difficult situation. You don't want him to move out because of a lack of upgrading and moving that, having move out, because then you really are at a loss. So I bring that as kind of his comments. He was going to talk about the dust. He was going to talk about the water intrusions. But he is concerned. He did see kind of the initial resistance to the original upgrades that you did on the south side of 7th Street. But it sounds like a lot of that was simply because there wasn't enough of this partnership to get clear about what is the parking going to look like, how is it going to affect my business, or how could it improve my business. So I think that you can overcome a lot of that things by at least a hand reach, to these various organizations who are highly motivated to work with you to work this out. And I think the second piece that we'll get to is as far as the grant. This is a substantial grant. This is a federal grant. I'm pretty clear, having talked to a lot of people, that we do not have in this body the capabilities to be able to appropriately address or respond to this kind of a grant application. So the second part of my action request, and I'll be glad to follow up, the various people who are here to talk on their own behalf, is to talk about establishing with a priority on this, getting a professional grant writer, grant manager to help us submit a grant application that is worthy and has a success rate, for something between the allowable limits for this grant of $500,000 to $10 million. unless you're committed to do this, there's no sense in going down this path, and you're not going to do it, with a haphazard, inexperienced program. So that will be the second part. I would like to yield then to some of the other business owners who've been, I hope, patiently still waiting to maybe talk about how this unimproved road has maybe impacted their businesses, how it's restrained them from maybe continuing to grow, and why it might be a benefit. And then following that, there are a number of organizations who would like to talk about the same kind of criteria for their association. So I'll yield to them.
Who's next?
Thank you, Dan.
Hi, Dan Wassenberg. I'm your local Pepsi bottler. I have two problems with 7th Street. One is I have a whole series of old buildings, and I get a lot of dust. And we sell a food product, so we try to keep everything clean, and I get dust coming in all the time. Highway 36 also naturally creates a nice dust stir for us as well. Then I have water. I don't know how many times, I know 3 times in the last 6 years, the water has plugged up so bad that it's flooded the building all the way to the offices towards 36. I had to replace carpet in 3 offices 2 times, and it's a mess. And then the water goes everywhere. In an old building, we can be down there with 5 guys with brooms. We can't get the water to go anywhere because then everything plugs up. I've had drains plug up, put over in what I used to call the beer room, now it's the Gator room, making a mess there as well. So it's frustrating, and honestly, I probably created some of the problem years ago when I got the city and Thompson Lumber up and we closed the alley. But the railroad tracks seem to divide the water and split it up more. I think now most of it just comes right down the alley, hits the drains, plugs up. On my docks, on the 6th Street part of it, I've had water almost as high as the docks are, almost in the building from the docks. And if you know my docks, they tilt down like that, so that's a ton of water. And one more thing, it seems like, and thank you for tearing down those buildings across the street. Seems like the city has done a nice job of getting those buildings bought, getting them tore down, and you have that focal point of the murals and the Pony Express thing by a huge gravel road that hits Highway 36. And when it's dusty and those people over there, they're getting killed with dust. I think it makes us look a little bad. I mean, we're right in the middle of town and we've got a gravel road. Any questions for me? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Kevin Cromie. We own Cromie Lumber at 609 Carolina, just directly behind Pepsi. And Dan's brought up a couple good points about the dust, and it's extremely dirty there when you have a straight south wind or a straight north wind. It's either blowing up through the town to the north or it's crossing the highway. It would be nice to get some of that under control. The water issue is probably one of the worst things. There's been some talk of putting another pipe, and directing water away from that intersection, because at the corner of 7th and Carolina and 6th and Carolina, those 2 intersections fill up with water, and there's nowhere for it to go, so I think it comes up out of certain storm grades, and then comes through the alleys, down, between Strollers and Napa, and floods our business. We've had water in there, probably 5 inches of water throughout the lumberyard, twice in the last 2 years. So that was the first couple of times that's ever happened. But as far as the trail and the project, I think it'd be a great upgrade for the community there. It puts a little better face on us, and gives my business more accessibility to people. You know, they see that I'm back there. That's one of the things we've struggled with, not being on the highway. I guess we don't want to see, you know, streets closed down. Right now, 7th Street makes a perfect truck entry for semis, you know, dropping off lumber and things like that. It makes an easy access. They pull up through there. There's no restrictions, which that will change in the future. So I guess the only concerns that I really have is, you know, keeping accessibility to all the streets and the alleys and things like that. So, you guys have any questions?
No, I mean, I know that the stormwater, you know, has been an issue in that area. And I think as part of that project, we'd probably try and improve it as much as we can. Some of it is just that by the time it collects all the water up on this end to the east part of town and heads down there, those tubes aren't large enough to handle the flow is part of it. I mean, I know that I've driven through town before and seen, a couple years ago, we had a hard rain and there was water actually shooting out of the storm drains into the highway because there was just nowhere for it to go.
And blowing lids off the...
Yeah, and to solve that, I mean, the only thing you could do is you'd have to dig up and replace all the way probably to where it dumps in over by the dike with larger pipes. But that would be, I'd hate to think how many millions of dollars that would probably cost, but I know that I mean, there are places that water collects, and we'd like to, I know we had talked about bringing some of that storm water maybe to the north. There's a main pipe up there that we could hit and alleviate some of that. So that, I mean, that's definitely something, if we do a project like this, we want as much as we could try and help with that.
And we've contemplated putting up another building down there, you know, and bringing it to the planning commission. And that's always been an issue on the planning commission, that, you know, the stormwater runoff has always been one of our main priorities as far as putting up more structures in areas where there's, you know, water management problems to begin with.
It's pretty flat right in there. There's not a lot of grade for the water to run a certain direction.
Well, and there's other areas too, throughout that whole bottom end of Marysville. I mean, you're correct. I mean, it's just, the system was designed when the 30s, 40s.
Oh, yeah,
when
probably
the original was put in.
some of that
and
was
most
even
of that
developed
residential
up
area
there.
wasn't developed up the hill, so there's just a lot of uphill flow from that. So, but I guess that's one of the biggest issues that we've had. You know, if we would move forward with something like this, that problem be addressed. Other than that, I don't see any negatives to it. So, all right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello.
Hello, my name is Jeff Stroller. I'm owner of Stroller Collision Center. I'm really not going to add to any more than what they've already talked about. I mean, other than, you know, the dust is a huge thing. It doesn't really work good with body paint and painting cars and getting the customer's car all cleaned up, park it outside, and it's dusty before they come pick it up, you know. And but as long as I've been alive, that Carolina Street is flooded for years, you know, and when it floods, it's like the drain on the east side takes the water pretty good, but the drain the south side, but the drain on the north side does not take it, and it fills up really fast, causing the whole street to drain, or to fill up. And then eventually what happens is it wraps right around the building, goes down the 7th Street, and then that big drain they put in there, all that water coming down the alley, it can't handle that either, and eventually it all floods, and then it runs into our basement and floods our basement. And, you know, we've had to have the fire department use their portable pump to pump our basement out, because we've had, like, you know, 3 to 4 inches or feet of water in our basement before, you know. And so it'd be nice to get that drainage problem fixed sometime, you know. And other than that, I mean, I'm all about fixing that 7th Street corridor. That'd be great to have that fixed up. But the other thing, what he was talking about is, you know, that alley between Napa and us is a very busy alley with semis coming through there. And the biggest thing that they kind of need is to be able to pull in there, you know, and pull out of there. That'd be the biggest thing for that alley there. That's about all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
I'm Bruce Dierking. I was one of the original volunteers when Leroy Stroller made the call to save the old girl, and I guess we fell for that. I know that he and we also thought that that could lead to some improvements there. And as a business and residence owner on North 8th Street, I pass by multiple times every day. And so it really has been a step in the right direction. I think Mike said it well. It's all donations. Hasn't been a tax dollar in that rascal. I point out when I give tours, the city's vision of acquiring 5 acres. Bill Philippi as mayor led that effort to not restrict us as a building isolated by everything else, but the city having control over that and then allow the adjacent business owners to expand and utilize that. I think it's been tremendous. So it's really neat to see what's happened. If you haven't been in lately, she's changed a whole lot. And it's impressive to see the opportunities going forward. I guess I'd also speak, president of Marshall County Development Corporation. We are not directly involved, but we promote anything that creates interest, increases tourist opportunities, and then improves our communities.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Toby Carrick. I'm the tourism director for the city. I was hired on June 1st, and among the first days, the 7th Street corridor became something of attention for me. A lot of people mentioned to me as a priority for them to complete the trail between Calhoun down to the highway, and also that it was a high item on the wish list for the parties like the trail and the depot. And it's an expensive one for sure, and that's why during my research for the grant, I came up with this concept of this ARPA tourism grant and brought it to the attention for the trail and depot, because it has awards from $100,000 to $10 million. Again, that's a big price tag on the top end, but also has components for engineering only part of non-construction work. So there's potential to do some work, to lay the groundwork so that the city's in a position in the future to be able to cash in on that, try to get some more financial aid for that bigger part of the package. Kind of echoing a little bit of what Mike said, that corridor, if it's not the front door for the city, it's pretty close to it. It's certainly something you want people to see because they're at the statue, they're at the murals. It's a good connector to where the depot is going to be for tourism. So obviously we have a lot of interest, I think, as a helpful thing for tourism for the city.
Thank you.
Thanks, Toby.
Randy Brown. I'm here representing the rail trail as the board of directors and the chairman of the board of directors. Obviously, the rail trail is in favor of the development of the 7th Street corridor. I wanted to make the city council aware of the utilization of the trail. We have a counter on the trail, and as of this morning, 15,465 was our count year to date, which is an average of 55 count per day. The trail is utilized. The trail is utilized predominantly by local people, but significantly by regional people, and to some degree by people all across the country. And working out there, I've seen people everywhere from Florida to Washington State on that trail. And a lot of those people spend the night here. And so obviously I think it's something that, along with the other improvements for the associated businesses, the development of this corridor will facilitate the things that trails already do for a community. That being, promotion of health and wellness, which obviously is my interest, primary interest, but augmentation of local commerce, and just having that place looking good and having the trail completed would be something that this community can focus on and be proud of. And I would love to see the city be able to complete this project. The board of directors of the trail will do anything that we can to help facilitate the process along with the city. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Randy.
So that might be the number of representatives at least that remained. Obviously, the need is clear. You've probably known about this a long time. The responsibility for the water and for the property is clearly yours. It's what you're responsible for. The opportunity for the grant, I think, is not, while it's significant at this point in time, it won't be the only grant. There are grant opportunities all along if you're aware of it, and if you have the high enough priority placed on the upgrading of this area to meet your other objectives that you have for the city. And so I would like, if it requires a motion or if it just requires an acknowledgement, it doesn't make any difference to me, but certainly I'd like to see the corridor, the upgrades to the corridor, raised to a much higher level than where they are now, so that we can start to expect some action and some decision making on moving forward with some of these improvements that are necessary for the protection of the businesses, necessary for increasing in tourism, improving the commerce, necessary for establishing clear lanes for the bike trails rather than using the platform outside of the depot, which ultimately we're going to want to be using for functions, and that'll be a safety problem. From a safety standpoint, from the intersection with the highway there, there's a whole variety of reasons, but we need to get on with this. The best opportunity that I've seen in the short period that I've been engaged now seems to be this grant. And this grant is an American Rescue Plan Act federal grant. So it has significant funding behind it. The reason that I've suggested that we get a professional grant writer, in my career I've bought gazillion dollars worth of equipment for nuclear plants and managed construction on major facilities and so on. So I know a little bit about vendor qualification and looking for the right kinds of credentials. And within a network that I've created, I have had a chance to talk with, one of these kind of individuals who is a professional, has a good experience, good track record. And I asked him, I said, so what is probably the most important thing about grant writing? Is it, way more pictures? Is it comprehensive discussions? Is it volumes of documentation or whatever else? He says, oh no, it's relationships. If you don't have the relationships of the people who can influence and monitor and understand how the decision is going to be made, what the decision criteria is, if you don't have that ahead of time, then it doesn't make any difference what you put on paperwork. So my recommendation is that we quickly employ a grant writer to help guide us and get us started down this path. The individual that I talked to had already identified a network of people that extended from Kansas City through Colorado of individuals who are influencers in this network of federal bureaucracy that will ultimately make a decision. So he's clear about how this works. And he's also clear that he's going to spend quite a bit of time with them finding out what is going to be the decision criteria, what are going to be the hot spots, what do we need to say specifically, and then come to us with, here's the kind of content and materials and information that I'm going to need. Now, I don't know what your level of engineering is and forecasting or estimates for what you've done. It would appear that this corridor offers you a lot of opportunity to upgrade current systems which are undersized or inadequate. There seems to be that. At a minimum, it gives you the chance to begin building an infrastructure on the federal government's tax dollars. And while, yes, it is a partnership with the federal government and may require some matching funds, that's only a potential. It does not necessarily mean there's going to be a 20% matching fund requirement. It's a sliding scale. It could be zero. And even then, there would be other grants available to you, kind of like I talked about, for electric vehicle charging stations or for additional trail renovations and modifications, north of the property that could extend back. There's lots of other ways to domino the benefits that are available through grants, but we need to have kind of a focused effort and a concentration on this as a priority. So the action items which I'd like to find out or ask for is, can you do whatever it is that you need to do to raise this to a much higher level of priority for the city of Marysville as far as a commitment to, conscientiously begin working on upgrade kinds of activities? Does that require a motion? How does that get plugged into whatever your strategic plan is, or how you're going to plan to meet the objectives that you have as a council for growing and preserving and improving quality of life in Marysville?
Well, it would be something we could probably send to a committee.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Have we, to your knowledge, ever hired a contract grant writer?
Yes.
Yeah.
We applied for a grant.
No, North Central Regional Planning.
They
is
are, I
our-
didn't know if outside of that, they are our contract grant writer.
It's not, we use them
We can
on a
leverage
regular.
them as that.
Yes, they are that. They are a grant writer and a grant
I
administrator.
thought of them, but I didn't know if we had independently of that, but.
And what is their
Great if we-
success rate for these kinds of levels of funding?
They just got us the fire station, CDBG, which is federal,
Yep,
funding. There's, the lagoons, they're working on the lagoons right now,
Okay.
which is also another CDBG, grant. They've, worked on various other ones. and
That's
they-
fine. I just want to be sure that, we're just not falling into a momentum kind of decision, well, that's what we've always done, if in fact that isn't what we determine to be absolutely the best course of action to achieve success.
We've seen that they are both good at what they do and are financially responsible as a choice. So they're there for cities specifically to help with grants, to find information, and then on the other side of it, administer the grants that they've written through the end.
Okay. So my other question, being a vendor qualification specialist, would be, do they have the capacity and the capability at this point in time to be able to respond quickly? This opportunity has been on the street now for almost 2 months. And the words in the summary say that while there's no deadline, you are encouraged to get your grant request in before January. Okay?
It only takes a question to them to see if they can fit us
Yeah.
in.
So what I understand from the grant writer that I've been talking to, he says that's code word for you better get your butt in gear and you get it in now as soon as you can. So that's why I'm asking, I want you to be clear about and committed, to making sure that we want to be successful. And I want this to be kind of more of a home run kind of effort. I don't want this to be just, well, let's figure out how we can eliminate the dust and just top coat it, or let's just figure out how we mark the trail so that the bikers know where they're supposed to go and they don't get on the platform. I don't want that for you. I want what the city needs, solving some problems and taking advantage of this opportunity. I think we can move fast enough. It doesn't require specific details that you necessarily have to commit to. It requires some budgeting, so you may have to get some budget requests or budget bids, on a lot of work. There's a lot of mystery probably that's buried under that street. I don't know. I've heard.
Not a street.
Probably some rail or something.
There is rail.
Yeah.
There is rail down there.
I'm sure.
But,
telling you there is.
demolition of it getting down to the base, or if there's a sewer line in there, I don't know if that's part of the problem too. I don't know what's in there.
Up at Alston there is. It goes
Yeah.
into the depot. Yeah.
You may require some exploratory excavation, just to be able to start to get some idea of what you're dealing with, or to give a contractor who's potentially going to give you a bid some confidence that he kind of knows what he's up against.
Plus, Union Pacific still does own that MCI line that runs underneath there.
Yep.
And they own a small parcel on the west side of the right-of-way, I understand, by Thompson Lumber as well. So
Yes, Thompson's.
They'll need to be party as well.
Yeah, I believe that Thompson still leases that property.
Crony Lumber, sorry, yeah.
But I understand from Kevin that he would be interested in expanding beyond that and getting away from that, but he'd have to tear the building down that he put up on it and in order to clear it for them. And he would do that if he knew where he was going to move those pieces. And he can't know that until we come up with some kind of idea where we're going.
And I'm with you in that I don't think there's any purpose in putting a pretty park and killing the dust if we're still gonna have flooding. I mean,
No.
this is
No.
take it down to solve the base problems and then rebuild over top of that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're just gonna, people will keep dealing with that flooding, and eventually, some council will have to tear out the nice stuff we
Who
put
knows,
in,
after
so
all
let's
the
not do
years
that.
that's been in there, that pipe may have just
Collapsed.
crushed away and collapsed from the way it trains every day on it.
Oh, yeah. And you're right,
Some of the problem there that we have now.
yeah, heaven knows what all they'll dig up, but.
Yeah, exactly.
I have, I guess, as a board member for the Depot Society, I have probably as much passion and interest in getting this done simply because I view that the Depot station is your landmark tourist attraction facility. I know you have other historical sites, but none of them compete with the universe of railroad enthusiasts and the type of people who are interested in specific kinds of architecture. Again, if you don't know anything about Gilbert Stanley Underwood, I challenge you to come visit with us and learn how important he has been to the architecture in the United States. And the fact that he constructed that entire thing with materials and people that he brought from the West Coast in a matter of 18 months, you couldn't get it permitted in 18 months nowadays. So it's a remarkable facility, and we're returning it to, I think, that remarkable stage. And it will be, in fact, your showcase attraction for the town. So I appeal to you that let's do this right. Let's swing for the fence. Let's see if we can get more than, just an engineering study done with the available funds that are hung out in this grant opportunity. And let's see if we can't get a majority of that betterment, if not clearly defined, at least underway for two of the three blocks,
I would like to make a motion for an application process for American Rescue Plan Act Tourism Grant that would be utilized for engineering work along the Blue River Trail along 7th Street corridor from Center Street and Calhoun Street, and additionally from Calhoun to North Street.
Is that only for engineering?
What's that?
Is that grant application only for the engineering?
Right.
Can you not expand that to some of the construction activities?
The three phases of construction: design, engineering, and non-construction.
Okay, all three of them. Oh, you're going to go, oh, great. I thought you just said just for the engineering. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Second.
Second. Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion?
So, we can reach out to North Central Regional Planning tomorrow, probably. And they should, you said, pretty quickly be able to tell us whether they can tackle it right away or not?
Yes.
And if they cannot tackle it, what do we do? What if they say, we already got our hands full? Can we go outside that to find someone else to work on it, time being of the essence?
Well, one of the things we're probably going to have to do up front is get an engineer to do some preliminary numbers, or at least a preliminary idea of what, I mean, it's just.
We have some previous
we
things
have
drawn
some
up,
plans, yeah.
like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Some base data, some things that won't have changed since
There's some base
2006.
stuff, and then we had CES a few years ago do a preliminary drawing based off the council's discussion at that point in time, which included a lot of concrete.
RV parking, long vehicle parking.
Yes, that long vehicle parking. No plugins for them though, and And basically
There's some
what,
drainage work in there too, I thought.
I mean, it wasn't drawn out, but yes, the conversation about drainage work was always there. But, yeah, there's a little bit of work that's been done. I think at that point in time, they said it was like a 10 to 15% drawing. Like, it didn't have very much information to it. It was an overhead view, and could change drastically in the engineering process.
Was that the time we submitted for that project, and I think it was
The whole 7th
Broadway,
Street corridor.
and
Yes.
then
Yeah, we
taking out
broke
the
into
hump.
stages, and we
Yeah.
got the other stages.
Yeah, and
We got
we
one
got awarded
stage.
Or
the
one of the three.
across Broadway.
Or one of the four, whatever it was.
So, but I will, I'll post.
So I would be glad to submit the individual that I've been talking with his credentials, if you would be open to also including him in your evaluation of someone to support the grant effort. And I'm also hoping that you'll know that you can rely on many of the organizations who have expressed an interest in seeing this through and helping you out, whether it's the kind of commitment that they have to this kind of betterment. I would also say that if this starts to look like it's too big of a piece for you, that the extension from Carolina to North Street might be a segment that can be handled through another grant that won't necessarily press us for the application on this grant and maybe cloud the success opportunity.
I agree. My only thought there was I'd want to make sure we did this in such a way, tied it off in such a way where we don't create a weird water problem later or whatever. When we get basically to the north side of Carolina, I just think that would probably be the cleanest way to break it if we had to break
You
it.
could take it all the way to Calhoun though in the first step.
And it'd be nice to include Calhoun, but
Yeah,
then,
exactly.
Yeah.
Because anything north of that, to me, is on its own project and.
Sure.
Because of the way the drainage and everything flows along there.
But yeah, Calhoun's primed to be
Yeah.
put to proper street specifications anyway.
Yeah.
Previous experience with that last time we applied, we applied to KDOT the last time, but their comments on projects we've submitted, and we try to do it the way they asked. They like complete projects. So I'm guessing that this organization, especially with the upside of $10 million, they would like a complete project that connects one place to the other. So the idea of only doing highway to first block it might get some attention, but probably wouldn't get the points that you wanted. Especially, like I said, they're offering a maximum of $10 million. So if we're going to go for it, we might as well go for it.
So we would emphasize that trail width crosswalk that dumps people out into the highway across from the tire stop sign.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, yeah.
So,
That's how you explain it.
so it would be better if we did from the highway to
Carolina.
Calhoun.
So the entire connecting it to the 7th Street, that little 7th Street, I think they would see that as a more complete project, because you're doing 7th Street and you're getting rid of all the gravel area, and it'll look more complete. Even though 7th Street North is not the best case, it looks like a different thing.
But, so that would get you past Calhoun to go to 7th Street.
Yep. So.
And that piece north, I think, is where the trail group has continued to look at opportunities for extending that. And I've had discussions with Mr. Peschel with regard to how that can how that can happen pretty effectively to modify that north of there to North Street so that they have a clear path and for the most part, I think, being off of public streets then, so that, you can eliminate that as a safety issue.
Okay. All right, we had a motion and a second.
Yeah,
Yeah, we had a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 8-0.
How can we stay involved and monitor your progress?
Just probably talk to you, I suppose.
Yeah, if you,
touch
I
base
mean,
with
if you
him.
got questions, direct them to me, or, I
Mhm.
mean, you can definitely check in with any of the council members, see what conversations have been going on, but.
You'll would be the point man though,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Okay, so, yeah, that's who I'll want to stay in touch with then to update our organizations as far as continued progress and expedite you if, if there's anything that I can do to help and support.
Right.
I don't know if you have objections to, more of the public-private partnerships in trying to get some of this done. We don't want to be a distraction, but we think that we can be helpful.
A lot, actually, all grants, like the partnership, as you've stated previously, they look for community support in your grant application. They look for that private entities, if we got multiple businesses throwing support our way, they highly seek that. I mean, that's the partnership. They want to throw money. That's a bad way to put it, but they want to spend money on projects
invest.
that are supported by the community at large.
Okay.
Because otherwise, if it's not supported, it's not going to be used, and it's in their eyes a waste of money.
All right. And I didn't hear if I got an answer to, would you be open also to considering a bid from an independent individual who is a professional grant writer?
Definitely, we definitely look at it, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I will turn that over to you or communicate his credentials to you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the MCAC management agreement.
You want to talk about it, Cindy?
Okay, this is the same agreement that was written in 2011. John McNish wrote it. It's the exact copy. They still have their copy on file, but because most of you are new and have never seen it, it had a 3-year renewal all the time. And I just thought it would be nice for you to see it. I did contact them, and they want to still do it. They want to do it for the same price. And this agreement is to manage the art center, and they do all the work over there. So it just takes a vote to renew it again for 3 years, and then it has automatic renewals following that. So that's all it is.
Move to approve the MCAC management agreement.
Second. For 3
Okay,
years
any
again.
further discussion?
For 3 years, yes, 3 years, with auto renewal.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 8-0.
Okay.
Next up, we have the lease purchase for Marysville Fire Department and the lighting project out of Feld Field.
Okay,
I see there were several different
yeah, the bank,
lengths of time.
first, the banks, United Bank, Marysville First Commerce, and Citizens submitted this lease purchase. Did they include the amount? Was
Yes.
it was
On the
where am I
4-year, 5-year, 7-year?
I know, but the total amount.
No.
That wasn't it $700,000?
Yeah, it was 700,000 is what I asked for.
Okay. So this is a $700,000 lease purchase proposal, and it basically is $400,000 for the fire department and $300,000 for the lights. The lights have not started. We've gotten the equipment for the lights, and they have not started. I don't anticipate any changes on that. The price for that was $297,000. The price for the fire station, we had the council had previously put the temp note in for $400,000. At this point in time, I just say we keep that $400,000, and the bank has said that if we don't use the money, we pay it right back and reduce our lease purchase amount, or reduce the balance on our account. So $700,000, 4-year term, 5-year term, 7-year term, 10-year term, is all with how comfortable the council is with the payments. I anticipated we typically have $50,000 for rec improvements in the general fund, and then I scheduled $100,000 for bond and interest in the coming year to come out each year. So that could be right in line with a 5-year term, but we might want to we might want to reserve some of that $50,000 out of the general fund for other improvements. So if we go with a 7-year term at 3.08%, that'd be really comfortable within our budget, and have money for other improvements.
And Lynn Mayer did tell me when he dropped this off that at any time we want to pay extra, we may. I mean, not just this year.
No
2
penalty.
years from now. No penalty.
There's no early payoff penalty.
No.
We
No,
can pay towards
he told me we could do it at
principal
any
however
time we wanted in the
Yes.
future, just so you know that. He
Yeah.
did say that.
That's been, he said
Yeah,
that.
that's unbelievably
He
nice.
said that up front. That's always been their policy with us, at least, that we can pay it off early. Without any negotiation like we had to previously. We don't have to pay somebody to come in and write that back up. We just, if we see fit, we can pay extra, and then shorten, reduce the amount of interest we pay.
Nice.
So do you need a motion?
Yes, and like I said, my recommendation at this point in time is a 7-year term for 3.08%.
I make a motion, we do the lease proposal for the firehouse on the lighting project for the 7-year term of 3.08% interest, $112,108.58 annually.
Okay. That a second? Okay. Any further discussion? Yes, Terry.
Have we taken into consideration, we're talking 40,000 and a change order on here, how many more of those is there gonna be?
We're the $400,000 included a little extra money that just in case there were change orders, and we will discuss. In fact, I have the engineer to discuss that, and it's not the change orders that are on there. There's 2 of them represent the same thing, so it's either $23,000. At least on the paper, or the $10,084.
I got 3 of them here.
I know, and then there's one that had a small change, the $1,760. So you either choose. So for instance, the $10,084 is for a 1.5-inch line for filling up trucks, or the $23,043 for a 2-inch line. So there are 2 different options of the same thing.
I'm just wondering how many more of them's gonna come up that we're gonna have somebody bumping it back up again.
Right, and that's why we factored in a little bit of extra money, in that $400,000 was a little bit extra money. And we will submit these things to CDBG and more than likely get 40% of that paid for. A little over 40%, because we have that extra cap in there.
We're not getting any help on the lighting, are we?
No, that was not grant funded.
Yeah.
That's pretty near 1/3 of the loan.
Right. But
That's why all of a sudden we get that baseball, their field lit up and it's gonna be another 100,000, we haven't got our.
No, that price shouldn't increase.
No, that was all inclusive.
So was the first original contracts we had here. They really were, instead of all of a sudden having these change orders put in there. That's interesting. But I just wanted to mention that.
Okay. Wait, a motion is second. All right. Any further comment?
What was your figure coming out of the Parks and Rec fund?
We have $50,000 for improvements at the ballpark complexes. That's typically what, each year. So it'll be a different number. It'll be a lower number for the payment of this debt if the 7-year term is approved. So we would have some money to do improvements otherwise.
Yeah, because keep in mind that we've talked about, doing some work on the concessions stand up there, which needs done.
Yep.
And the bathrooms and
Yes.
all that.
We'd leave some money open for that.
I don't know if we ever got any rough estimates. Anybody got back to us yet?
No, I'm working on a conversation with the college down the road, Highland Community
Highland?
College.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that would be nice.
They
if we
build,
do.
and they seemed interested in the project.
That would be nice. Okay. We had a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? 8-0.
You should go look at Hanover's. They redid at the football field, the concession stand and the thing there. And they're really nice. The bathrooms are really nice.
Nathaniel, you're up.
All right, Daniel?
Sorry.
And just so you know, all we have are the 3 change orders.
What you have, is it broke out on materials?
No,
Okay.
because all we got was.
We just got that. Ultimately, I'm here to talk about those 3 change orders. And as Austin stated, the 2 are for the same situation. There's a $23,000 fill line for the tank or a $10,000 option. The difference between those 2, I'm not as familiar with the signing one. I know that was already something that was discussed. First of all, I guess what I would like to say is I think there was some miscommunication on our side in regards to the fill components and the need for that. I've talked with our architects, Clint Hibbs, who was the architect on the project. I've also coordinated with our MEP, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, because I had a similar question. I don't do firehouses, not my deal, but I said, well, do most firehouses have those? And the last 5 that we've done, they've said 1 has had this. I just wanted to give you that information. It doesn't matter, but it should have been involved in the project. It wasn't. And so we want to talk about what this means for the city in regards to these change orders. The one thing I would do or say, and when I got back from the LKM today, I went through and looked at some information. I'll just say point blank that I believe, and according to the contractual documents, we need more information provided to you from the contractor to support their claim for the amounts. And the reason why I would say that is I do have, we did make a request and we did get a breakout, and this, I'm just giving you my opinion. The breakouts for the 1.5-inch option was, I'm just going to round numbers, $5,800 for material, $550 for support material, solder, miscellaneous, and then labor, $3,700. The 2-inch option, material, $14,500, support material, the support material, solder, and miscellaneous, $1,000, and labor of $7,500. The reason why, one, by contractual documents, they should provide a more thorough detail in what this breakout is. We did request it from them, and that's what we got, was a breakout of those 3 items. So it's a little better, gives us that. But, and I'm not a contractor, but I just looked at Menards, and I could buy the material, and I'm sure I'm missing little things, but the valves, the pipe, and everything, for the 2-inch option, I had about $6,300. And the 1.5, I had about $4,400. I didn't take in contractor discounts and all that type of stuff. But, and I'm not saying that, I mean, council, you know, the city can decide what you would like to do in that regard. But what I would like to recommend is that we do get a better breakout to understand what those prices involve, and before you would act. Now, I also know that these were provided by the contractor with a 5-day time frame, which has already elapsed, and I don't believe that's in the contractual documents. They know that every change order has to go through the city. It's supposed to go through the architect to the city, and that always has a time frame associated with it. I'm not discounting the possibility that material prices may fluctuate in the time frame, maybe between now and your next council meeting. But I guess I'm giving you my honest opinion with that I think it might need to be a little less. And one other point of order that I wanted to look at. Now, I'm not 100% sure what this particular schedule value that was provided by the contractor that builds the framework for their pay requests throughout this project. The plumbing breakout for the entire project was $73,000. And there's a lot of pipe that's gone in there. Now, I will also say, I know copper is much higher than when they bid this project. There's no doubt. That's why I went and looked at what could I get at Menards. And like I said, I'm sure I'm missing little things here or there, but I do have a breakout on that I feel there's a possibility with that.
It's, you pay what you get. There's better materials and what.
Yeah.
Well, this was type L copper.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't using like DMB.
You know where I'm
Yeah.
coming from. There's
Yeah.
different grades of materials.
And type L is actually, I mean, it's not quite as expensive as type K.
Okay.
Type K is for outdoor underground use. Type L is the copper you would use inside buildings. So that is what I looked at.
Okay.
So.
I kind of feel like they knew what we wanted when we started this project, so why didn't they, I mean, how do you fill a fire truck with this small of tubing?
Well, many do. I'm not gonna,
Well,
I'm not denying that is something, some go off of fire hydrants, that they'll fill off fire hydrants. Now, that's not a normal condition.
Well, I mean, I think that we kind of rely on the contractor to build what we want.
No, the
No,
contractor
we're
built what was
the
drawn.
architect.
The contractor built what was drawn, not what we want.
Right.
Well, no, I mean, not the contractor, but
The architect.
but the architect.
And I agree with that.
So,
That should have been clearly communicated between my staff and the city. And I'll say here, I think we have a responsibility for part of this scenario. Now, I will mention, if it was drawn in, you would have had a base cost involved in that. And we can discuss that. I'm not worried about that.
That extra half inch kind of expensive, isn't it?
Do what?
From inch and a half to 2 is.
Yeah, and that's actually the
more flow.
pricing that, yeah, I mean, you get to 2 inch, it's just.
Now, why don't you tell him the flow rate difference?
Okay, the flow rate difference, that's a good point. For the 2 inch option, would take, for your largest tank, it's 3,500 gallons, right?
Yes, correct.
It'll take approximately an hour to fill with the 2 inch option. And with the inch and a half, it'll probably take an hour
They're usually
and
lower.
40 minutes.
We have.
I was gonna say,
What's the PS?
what ratings are you using?
What's your, well, I'm using about 40 GPM for an inch and a half. And 2 inch can be between 50 and 70, so I was using 60.
At what pressure?
I'm not familiar with the pressure.
Okay, we're gonna have 100 pounds of pressure
You
and
probably got
gallon per
every bit
minute
of 90, yeah.
through a pipe that I'm coming up with is 384 gallons on a 2 inch.
Well, if you have 100 PSI, you'll move a lot of water.
But
Yeah, that was.
But we do, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
We do have a lot of pressure. We do
So,
have a lot of pressure.
Yeah, so realistically, as I'm gonna have to remember, because I did run these numbers based off of, you lose about 12 PSI going through, at 60 GPM going through the 2 inch, and if you have 100, you still have, it's gonna move quick. So I was looking probably at something along 50 PSI, and there's about a 30 to 40 minute difference. And if you have 100 PSI, you're gonna be substantially faster.
Right, I was taking friction loss off.
Yeah.
And doing it about 350 gallons per minute, and I was coming up with 10 minutes to fill the 3,500 gallon tender. If you do inch and a half, I remember, I think it's 19 minutes. And then.
That would follow in about.
Yeah, the other problem is that there's a bunch of other trucks that sit there too.
Mhm.
So.
Right.
And altogether, there's.
And it matters if you wanna do one at a time, or you're doing multiples, you know?
Right.
Cause if you've got 3 bays and you got 3 filling, they're all gonna take longer, but they all can fill together.
Yeah.
So,
And honestly, that's gonna be a learning curve for the fire department, because they're all gonna be there in one building now.
Yeah.
And they never were that, they were never on the same mains together,
yeah.
it's different.
So I guess my recommendation is I think realistically, we can work with the contractor, get it, I believe it should be more economical. But can move forward with whichever one you prefer, we can move forward and I would hope by the next meeting, or we could get something completely ready for you in that case. If you're gonna look at doing 3 at a time, you would probably want the 2 inch option.
The
There's
2
no
inch, I
doubt.
think, and, cause all that's coming in, if I remember right, it's a 2 inch that comes in the building.
There's a 2.5 and we'd connect off of that.
Okay, right, 2.5 that comes in the building.
And just to clarify on this difference in price, and maybe I should have had the plans available, but the 1.5 inch, actually, there's already an existing 1.5 inch line going across that
On the
we would
west
be,
side.
on that west side, that we would be drawing off, right away. What the 2 inch does is come from the beginning of the building, goes all the way over and back
It
to
would
the
be an
backside of the building.
isolated system in
So
regards
it's
to.
a lot longer way to go, but it gives a direct feed in an isolated system, to fill the trucks. There was a discussion about bringing it through, from, a 2 inch that's over one of the bathrooms, onto the back wall. My concern with that is it's also, that line's also feeding other things. So you possibly trying to run the trucks and then maybe going to the bathroom, using the kitchen, all that other stuff, putting a strain on that system.
Looking at, we're not gonna break things
Right,
like we do now.
right.
Yeah, the 1.5-inch option, as Austin said, that line on the west side is an inch and, it serves all the downspouts.
Right.
Right.
And the 1.5 inch goes to the first one, then it goes to 1 inch, then it goes to 3/4 for the third, for those drops. What we're proposing, it's only 70 foot of pipe. From the 1.5 inch where it changes from 1.5 inch from the first drop, we would go 70 feet and replace that inch with 1.5 inch, and then you would have all 3 drops on a full 1.5 inch. The 2-inch comes off the east face, off the 2.5-inch vertical. Well, it's about 225 feet of 2-inch. But it is isolated. All of them will be isolated with fill valves and, the valve component, but. And like I said, I know one thing that I've already looked at myself is I know we have a lump sum contract with you for construction administration. And I would be open to discussion of your feelings of reducing that value as appropriate. So. I don't know what you would like to do, at least this evening. I mean, if we want to focus on the 2-inch, hopefully we can get that. I'm sure we can get this information turned around back to you within a couple days.
Okay.
I know your official capacity in doing anything with it, but, or if there's a listing that you're good with and we can come in cheaper, that we could move forward, I don't know. That would be another thought process.
I'm in favor of the 2-inch, I'll tell you that.
I like the 2-inch.
Because I film, so.
2-inch.
I like a dedicated line. I don't like the idea of drawing, because if you're coming off the 1.5 inch, then every gallon that you use is going through that system that serves the
Yeah.
rest, which means it's gonna eat
It's not
those.
as efficient.
Well, it's gonna eat those tees out faster, is my
Yeah.
view as a plumber. It's gonna eat that stuff out faster. What's council want to do?
2-inch.
2-inch.
Do we make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we could proceed with the 2-inch water fill fast fill lines.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Yes, Terry?
Now, will that mean there'll be an additional cost now?
Well, there's gonna be an additional cost, and then we'll have to have talks with them about whether they.
Over and above this change order that's in here now that we're talking?
No, it should be over and above this
That
change
should
order.
close that issue.
Yeah.
Mr. Hughes, that should be done.
Yep.
And I think you'd asked before, I didn't ask this specifically, but I know we're pretty close to done on that. I don't think that there
close.
should be any other change orders.
Okay.
Colleen, there's a motion on the floor.
For the 2-inch.
Yeah, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion
For the 2-inch line.
for a 2-inch line? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 8-0.
Now, you're gonna talk to the contractor, or the BG's gonna talk to the contractor, get more details and
Yes.
possibly see if if they can reduce how much this costs, because it looks
Yeah,
extraordinary?
Yes.
Okay.
If I can go to Menards and get it cheaper, I would expect they could too, so. But we will get that back to you.
Okay.
Now we have the
Letters out
other,
in front.
Huh?
Letter out in front.
yes.
Do we need the end?
Do we need the end?
Yes,
I noticed it
Yeah,
the first time I drove by, I thought, why isn't there an end?
there needs to be an end, because
And
it is
that's-
north, it's north
Went up.
20th.
I like saw them flashing it.
Broadway north is north, Broadway south is south. It's been that way.
There is
forever.
no, I mean,
No
yeah,
South 20th Street.
There could be,
yeah.
Through Sonic.
no,
What are
no,
we going
through Landell.
Landals.
Well,
You might
that's
get
the
the
other
property
change
behind
order that you have in front of you,
Yes.
is that what you're
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Does the post office require that you have an end in it?
They don't get mail.
I know, but
No,
so,
I know what you're talking about, Dan. I
all the-
tried looking up the
all the-
address, I couldn't find
Of
one.
all the organizations that should follow consistency with,
That's fine.
with addresses. Emergency services is a pretty good one.
I'm just like Diane though, as I went looking for other ones that have north. I live on
Yeah.
Jenkins, so
There's not a lot.
There's no,
Probably
I
don't.
don't have a north or south in my address.
No, because you sit on east to west.
I do not.
No, but the ones that go north and, I mean, people
Where's your
have
front
a
door?
number on, but they don't
My
have
address is
north on there.
211 South 15th.
South.
Really?
Mine's
Yes.
north, but we have a north on mine, 808 North 13th.
I don't have it on my house.
North 11th.
In the phone book it is, but
My thought was is we didn't have a south Pine Street. I didn't see it as a big thing.
I don't remember it ever seeing it on anything I got the deal out, and I don't remember ever seeing it on any of the plat or anything where it says what our address was on the sign.
And while we're talking about those numbers and letters, we could have gotten three-dimensional ones that would have looked twice as nice and been more legible from the side, because they look like crap from the side. They look like I made them on my laser table at home. They don't look like professional letters, but that's just my 2 cents there.
No, but
They're what? No, they're hard to read on the angle because
They
of the
are.
corrugation that it's in.
They are.
Yeah.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
That's why three-dimensional ones are good. They cast a shadow and they're easy to read.
that's
So that is the other
$4,000. I
change
don't know that
order
we need
that
an
you
in.
would need resolution on,
And
I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
Just
quite
put
a
a
bit of
little-
money to
get one of
put
the little
an N in
stickers.
though.
well, it's because they've
I
got to
didn't-
remove
I know they gotta take all the tin
screw
down, they gotta
holes
redo
and-
the whole
yes.
deal, drill the holes back in. I understand all that, but that's still a
So-
lot of money.
Well, we could ask for further detail on that as well.
Yeah.
That there's, as I said, this is contractual. It's a process they're supposed to go through. This did not go through that.
What
And
happened to the end? Was it that not there? Was it missed?
I don't know.
I don't remember seeing
Something
it
had to
in the
happen
paper.
because they put it up and then they come up with an N after it was done?
I don't
No,
remember
they didn't have an in.
yeah, they don't have one.
Right. They
They
didn't
got
order
one of the
it.
little 2-inch stickers out at Hometown Lumber.
There you go.
I
So
don't
the end
remember
wasn't
seeing it in any of the
originally
paperwork.
equipped for that
They,
when they
for
said
some
it.
reason, they didn't get
It
it,
wasn't on the picture.
yeah.
Right.
It was never put on.
So do you guys want more detail on that as well? I mean,
Yes.
that's easy.
Yes. I think we did, 'cause I didn't see it in any of the
That's
paperwork.
I think someone needs to pay for that. I'm sorry. I don't think we need to pay for it. I'm sorry, that's,
They didn't ask us.
Well, they probably
Not
just
that
went
I
off
know
the,
of.
I mean, right here on our document, it just says 405 20th. There's no north on there.
I was looking at that.
So my guess would be they pulled it off of that and didn't ask us,
Yeah,
specifically.
and to be honest with you, I personally was more worried about the water and I didn't
Yeah.
I didn't ask one question about that. So I will ask that though, but we will do that and be back with
Well, do you
you.
need to make a motion or you just want to further?
Just get more detail.
Yeah, if that's all we need to do, that's fine. We'll just focus on the 2-inch for the water and we'll find out.
Right.
I'll find out on my side and we'll get more detail on the contract, from the contractor.
Okay, so those were all the change orders in writing. We did have a discussion, just, you can listen to this, there's, I got input from, the architect. We were talking with Hanover Electric about our water heaters. It's designed to have 2 water heaters, one 100-gallon and another, what was it, how many BTU? They're both the same BTU. But a tankless water heater. Jared with Hanover Electric felt that tankless could serve all the fixtures with the same results, especially since the proximity on that mezzanine to all the fixtures was so close. You'd get he felt like you'd get the same results from that 100-gallon because it's in the same location as you would from the tankless, because you would turn the water on, it'd heat up, and it'd get there faster than, let's say, for instance, my house. Tankless is in the basement. It takes a minute to get to the top.
Yeah.
And the judgment from the engineer, architect, was that yes, after reevaluating it, that tankless could do a good service for all the fixtures. They did caution if you're running the mop sink I don't know why it would be hooked into the hot water, hot pressure washer.
Pressure washer, you have cold water.
So they might have made a mistake on that because it's got its own heater in it.
Yeah, it does.
If you're running the big things, the kitchen, the people are trying to take a shower, and some fixtures, it might lag and not be able to keep up, but otherwise, normal as is. How does the council feel about removing that 100-gallon water heater from the project and seeing a cost savings?
And it'd just be the tankless?
It would just be the tankless. And so removing that, even though it's probably really efficient in keeping the hot water hot in its tank, more than anything else, it's still trying to heat that 100 gallons all the time. Whereas the tankless is on demand. You turn the faucet on and you get it.
We'll see a definite reduction in gas price for sure.
Yes.
Usage.
So I want.
You'd be surprised how little a gas water heater uses to just maintain hot water sitting there. Not as much as you think. Heating up, yeah.
But gas prices are gonna shoot up in the next year or two, so.
Yes.
We'll see those savings more than.
I think they'll come back to us.
Were they two separate systems, or were they coming out of the demand and going into the tank?
There's a duplicity.
The tankless.
Duplicity.
Yeah, the tankless was specifically for the showers.
Okay.
Yeah, and then because we didn't want like people to run and after a fire, want them to get a shower and not run out of hot water. So that made a lot of sense to keep the showers going. If you got 9 trucks out and then 9 trucks come back and everybody needs a shower, a hazmat shower or something like that, they can go one in right after the other. So that was the initial point of that tankless, is to keep a constant flow of hot water. But it was engineered well, high enough that we got a big tankless water heater and a big tank, which Jared from Hanover Electric said that tank did which gym? I forget which city's one of the school gyms. That served all the showers, that served all the fixtures in the gym. It was kind of big. Same exact water heater, but that the tankless should be doing well enough.
So what's the cost savings?
We'd have to look into that to get that detail.
What, $1,000 or 10,000 or what?
I mean, a 100-gallon water heater is going to be commercial grade. Is going to be several $1,000s.
How much?
Several thousand.
Several.
I haven't had a price one for a while, but I mean, last I knew they were like $3,000 or something like that.
Wouldn't the contract have a line item? They
Not
don't.
directly. That 73,000 included both of them and all the piping and.
So we would get some detail on
Yes.
that. It would be the piping to the 100-gallon, the labor on the 100-gallon, and
The purchase of them.
and the purchase of the 100-gallon. Now, whether that, I don't know if, I mean, he seemed pretty relaxed about this whole idea. I don't know if he's restocking that or if he's got another place for it.
But we can certainly ask and
Yeah.
go through that, get that detail for you.
So
as well.
if you're okay with getting, at the very least, getting the detail, he hasn't installed it, it's on site, ready to go. He hasn't done any of the plumbing, he said, to it. He was kind of concerned about how it fit up on the mezzanine, but it was obviously gonna fit. But it was just like.
Big water heater.
It was a big water heater. Had a little bit of space above it. So are you guys okay with getting the
Yeah.
detail on it?
Yeah, just get it, let's go.
Okay,
Okay,
all right,
we'll get that too.
Shower before we get that decided.
all right. We'll get some detail.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you,
good
Daniel.
evening.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe. Okay, nothing under notices and hearings, onto the consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? 8-0. Next, we have appropriations ordinance number 3757.
Move to approve appropriation ordinance 3757, amount of $257,235.04.
Okay, have a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, roll call?
Yes.
Hippiah,
Yes.
Fry,
Yes.
Stroller,
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
Bikeman,
Yes.
Price,
Yes.
Barons,
Yes.
Drunk.
Yes.
8-0.
Okay. All right, nothing on staff reports, next week.
I did,
Actually, you,
I want to apologize for not getting out the financials in the agenda, but when I got back to the office on Friday, I got the financials ready to go and sent it to you in an email. I just want to, we're still in really good shape. No, I didn't see anything of concern, but I'll go over all the funds that I normally go over. As far as the general fund, we're still sitting over $1 million as of the end of September. That's a really good spot to be in. We spent 62.33% of our budget in the general fund, and we're 75% of the way through the year. So still sitting really well on the budget side, as well as the amount in the fund. The water fund, we saw 109,000 in revenue and 97,000 in expenses. So we still saw a net positive in that fund. In the sewer fund, we're back to somewhat normal expenditures. We got 66,000 in revenue and only spent 39,136.21 in expenditures. So we saw a net increase of around close to $30,000, and that's what I like to see in our sewer fund. We went through spending on the CIPP, getting that taken care of, and now payments for that is complete. So I'll look forward to continuing the increase in our sewer fund so we can do projects next year as far as manhole replacement or installation and flush tank removal. And we won't have a CIPP project next year, so that'll be a relief on the sewer fund. Sales tax, we had another overall month, I believe it's $150,000, another $150,000 month for sales tax. And I think the 96,000 revenue in the sales tax fund. And then we spent $155,000. I think that included property purchases and demolition. We paid for the demolition of those properties out of the buildings and the houses out of sales tax. So that is the increase in expenditures out of sales tax fund. But still in a good position. Our in balance for sales tax is $811,000. So we're within $200,000 of $1 million. So we can look to do more projects in the future.
About the only thing we got left coming out of the sales tax be the last 3 demos.
Demos, 11th Road.
Okay, I forgot the 11th Road. Which they're doing the first pour tomorrow?
Yeah, they're working really hard on 11th Road to get that done. Yeah, 11th Road will come out of there. I'm not thinking of any big.
$73,000 for the demos is in this one, so
Right.
it's not in September.
So the demos in the.
It's in here.
Oh, it's in that one.
It's in this.
So that's. But
speaking of demos, have we heard anything about the one on 12th Street?
No, I haven't, and I was just thinking about that the last.
Progress, somebody asked me about that the other day, if any progress was being made on that, and I wasn't
The
sure.
1205 Carolina?
Yeah.
I need to check on that. But the last I talked to him, he said he was gonna be a month out, but that was 2 months ago probably. Yeah.
It's been a while.
Fields now.
The other ones are all gone.
Can you send us a copy of those financials so we can have them?
I did. They're in your email from,
Friday.
on Friday. I sent them out on Friday.
We did?
Yeah. Yeah, and I can send another copy, but, yeah, I try, like I said, when I got into the office, I tried to get those out as fast as possible. Normally I would have them in the agenda, but it just didn't work out at that point in time, and we like to get the agenda out on Thursday, so.
I didn't get it.
Any other questions about?
In a separate email, Diane.
I know, but I didn't get it today.
Okay. Any other questions about financials? Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Standing committee reports. Anybody have anything on the street?
Yes. A while back, I brought up 2 intersections, the one at South 6th and Kester. I've not heard anything back on that. That pipe runs across the street there by Miriam Hogan to the west, and it dead ends. It's plugged. Nothing's been done about it. We talked about maybe enlarging that pipe. It's just a 4-inch pipe going under there. The other intersection I brought up was 7th and Jackson by the bus barn. We filled that drainage ditch into the south when they redid 7th Street. That water now fills up in front of that, runs down the east side of the property line, down the alley. We've talked about drilling a hole, getting it to Spring Creek. That's been talked about, but nothing. I don't ever see anything on these projects.
Okay.
On street, there's a barricade down on South 15th. About a block, maybe block and a quarter north of where that big tube comes out. Sits right in the middle of the road. Anybody know why it's there?
There's a hole in the street, and we think the thought is that it is a sinkhole.
Chance we can get that taken care of before winter? Well, I don't want them out there trying to fix it when it's 20 degrees because it got bigger.
Right. I'll check back and see where that's at.
As long as you can check on it, that's all I ask.
Okay. Anything else on the street?
This email that was printed off here for us from Dexter Spitznagel, I guess nobody's ever said anything to me about streetlights out there. I run out there in darkness on a lot of mornings. It is definitely dark out on Keystone Road and 11th Road. My first question is this going to be something that everybody wants? Because if I lived there, I'm not sure I would want it.
I was just gonna go there. A long time ago, we did Breeding Heights. There was 3 people that come in and wanted them. And after those 3 people come in and spoke, we heard from the rest of them out there that said, no, we don't want to be a part of that.
And that's why I don't know if before we go too far down the trail, it'd be good to get, if not a formal, at least an informal kind of a straw poll of people who live out there to make sure everybody wants it. Some of them might like it, but it's dark. It's more like the country.
Right.
You know, they don't have light pollution or, you know, they can see stars and whatnot. So,
They're nice purple lights.
I mean, if everybody wants it, okay, by all means, yeah, give them those god-awful purple lights. But I just, you know.
What's wrong with that?
What do you want to do? I'm being serious. Send them a letter and
So
ask
I'd say,
them?
is there a way, an easy way for us, I mean, I don't know how many people this would potentially affect, like probably 20 houses.
Yeah.
Can we reach out to them? Is there any convenient way for us to do that? Just send them letters to say, this has been brought to our
Just the
attention?
ones that are within
Or I don't
the
know that
city
enough of
limits?
them are gonna watch this to see it.
Along 11th Road.
No, just the
No,
ones that
Keystone
are.
is where he's
Keystone.
Oh, and Keystone?
Yeah, Keystone's where he's
So
at.
we would
That'd
only
be
be able to
Keystone,
put
yeah.
lights in city
In that
limits.
first mile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
then-
one of the other solutions could be, they could either replace them with brighter lights, the existing ones, and just have a wider.
You mean the light polluting ones like they put in up here on Broadway that are so awful?
They're only higher.
The ones
that's
that
why.
you arranged?
He was after you, Todd, you knew that.
I can see from my bedroom window 2 blocks away. Yeah, let's get more of those.
Do you need to see better? Because I can angle them.
Yeah. Oh, you have a remote at your house? Well,
Hold on, I got it.
Put light shades, light filtering shades up.
well, the lights should be projected more down, and Westar should know better. They're probably trying to get rid of those crap lights. At any rate. Light pollution is a problem.
It
just
is.
is.
It
It
is.
really is a problem. So, no, I think we should reach out. I mean, if there's a big push and they really do want it, and they think it'd be safer, if for no other reason, then it is hard to see those holes when you're running out there in darkness. Ask me how I know. I mean, I think we should just reach out, so.
We can send letters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else on street? Yeah, Terry.
One thing I wanted to bring to the administrator's attention, they did a little work on North Street in the last 8 or 9 days, and there was a very serious accident. There was no one-way signs. They blocked off half the street, and 2 cars tried to pass right there in front of Ed Wiggers' house, because nobody was giving anybody
out there.
any warning.
Yeah.
They could have put signs up and let people know what was going on, and it was totally neglected.
People were a little confused. I drove out there during that, and, I mean, people really didn't know what they were, because it was offset. It was like a slalom, and people weren't sure who had right of
one side,
way.
and then the other side, it was like you had to go through a maze.
I didn't know.
And they didn't put no signs out there to protect people. That should be brought to the attention of your street department.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe just caution 1-lane road ahead, or,
Yeah.
Because, I didn't know what either at first. I see what they were doing. I'm glad they're doing that work, but yeah, it was a little confusing.
Okay. Anything else on street? Water, wastewater?
Yes. Is the sewer line into the fire department or not?
No.
Thank you.
It's not?
No. It's not.
I know we had the other company put the water line in, and I assumed the other line was in, then I heard it wasn't in yet, so.
The
sewer line.
I'd have to, because that might be a part of the project though. Like, you know what I'm saying? I don't think
I
that was
would
ours.
assume that we would have put it in.
Because they gotta, I'll have to look at the plans, but I didn't think that
Where
was.
does that exit the building?
It goes north to the alley up there by the.
Right.
I do know they said that after they get done with the pour out there, they were going up there the next day to put the things underground so the water can drain off the roof.
Right.
That was the thing that they were doing on Wednesday or whatever, and then to pour the fire front.
I'll have to look back at the plans, but I didn't think that was on ours. I thought that was.
You let me know.
Right.
Because there again, if that's being done now and we were supposed to do it, that's another hold up on us.
Right.
Okay, anything else on water, wastewater? Parks and Rec? Kevin?
Sorry.
Done.
This is another thing that was brought up a long time ago, and I noticed we had, on the north side of the swimming pool, where that old tarp used to lay, we talked about getting some either aluminum or steel metal to lay over that.
Yeah.
Are we gonna get that completed yet before winter?
Yeah, I discussed that with them. We're obviously not gonna use that tarp again.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. It's just, I guess, getting that piece of metal, yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna be there before we know it.
It
Middle
is.
of October.
Yeah. You know, and right now the leaves and stuff are going down through the grates and into
Yeah.
it, so I mean, it'd be something if we had already, it'd be less clean out come spring.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else on Parks and Rec? Cemetery and Airport?
How's that project coming along? Still on schedule, isn't it?
I don't know. I mean, they're still making progress,
I
so.
was gonna say, we got another pay
They
drawdown today.
they are making great progress on that. They got the sub-base, all the concrete in there, let it cure, and then they got rock down. I have to check my email. I got it, yeah, we got another pay request from that. But they're making good progress.
Yeah, they should be pouring, I think,
Yeah, I was gonna say.
depending on what the rain does here
Say
Wednesday.
if the weather allows them to get the concrete in the ground.
Right.
Okay. Anything else on cemetery and airport? Police and fire?
I guess we still don't have the concrete at the firehouse yet, huh?
They've
They
been
poured
pouring.
the
Yeah, in back.
roach in back,
They're
yeah.
doing the apron, that's what I said, in 2
Yeah.
days.
Yeah, I hope.
Yeah,
The parking lot's formed up, so.
yeah. They've been working on it.
Yeah.
but,
People keep, I know, but we're the middle of October already.
And, yeah, no, yeah, they're making progress on it.
Yeah.
And there's no sewer in?
It's not connected to the sewer main, no.
Just run it down to Lakeview. Kidding.
Open sewer down.
Yes.
Do we have a kind of formalized plan for this structure that will be a former fire department once we get the move in?
Not
Because I've had
really.
people ask, what's the plan there? I said, well, there's some ideas that have been discussed. Cindy wants to move in there.
She wants it for storage.
Yes, we're getting part of it.
So basically, it's not a formalized plan. I've been discussing it through the departments. One portion can be used for evidence storage, so like a vehicle can go in there, or some of the larger pieces of evidence. The portion of it we plan to use for a workshop, and then also parking of vehicles, and then I don't know if those plans take up 100% of the building, but
Well, part of that building's not super great for a lot of things. Are you talking about like your vehicle, the city administrator's vehicle?
and Will's vehicle.
Will's vehicle?
Yes. Yep.
Do those, if you're using part of it for evidence, does it need segmented off?
Yes. And they, the police department's already approached about that option. They have an idea of how to segment it off.
Well, I guess my thought is, I want to get kind of in front of it here before we get to the point where we're seeing that we spent money on a building that's not great. Maybe like we should have a really good plan. I'd hate to see us pour lots of, little project, bits of project money into that building, and it's not really great for anything, but we've invested more into it, when maybe the better option is to not do that.
Yeah.
That makes sense? Because I could see that building just nickel and diming us to death, being a stopgap for a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's great.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else on police and fire? No? Okay. Admin and finance?
I have one there.
Yes.
So we have a lot of committees, right? And
Yeah.
some are variously active, inactive. Seems like we go through phases where our committees are going gangbusters, and the next minute, I can't even remember what committees I'm on. It's been so long since we've met. Do all these committees have official chairs? They don't have chairs. So when if there's a committee meeting called, there's not,
Normally, they call the city clerk.
You.
We kind of they got into that before, because they were calling their own meetings previously. And that it would go out, at least so somebody would know that they were officially having a meeting. But
It depended on who the council at that point in time. At one point in time, the council had said things have to come to the council and then delegate it out. So that way, the council knows what's going on, and it's not an arbitrary, I need a meeting now, so I'm gonna have my committee.
Right now, anybody who's on the committee can just tell Cindy, I want to have a meeting, and then that's that?
Well, it kind of was that before, but it wasn't. Then it kind of got to, we didn't have any meetings unless the council asked for a committee to meet.
Well,
and I would still send the thing out. But.
And I can see a logic to that, but I guess a lot of times there'll be something that's kind of decided or done, and then I'm like, I'm on the airport committee, so I'm like, who decided? How did this, I'm a hangar owner, and I was never notified of when things were going to be closed. Maybe there was an assumption like, hey, he's on council, he should pull his head out and pay attention more. But it just seems like there's a lot of things that could or should go through committees that never do.
You mean like the airport?
Well, just a lot. Okay, so when the new leases, that never went through the committee. I thought, that should have, and we kind of talked about that. But then the airport road being closed and all that being redone,
Yeah.
it's like, was notice sent out to hangar
That
owners?
was all, were they supposed to be?
No,
I
see,
don't
that's
know,
what I
no
mean.
one ever
See,
told me.
exactly, I'm not saying that's on you, I'm saying that's the kind of thing that should be like, to me, on that committee, to be like, hey, this is the project, who needs to know, what are the ramifications, you know? If it's a police and fire issue, you know, then the police and fire committee can be double checking things and running. It feels like there's a lot of things that either staff is handling or the council at large is handling, when it really doesn't need to be either one of those things. It can be a committee decision.
It can, I mean, I've been of the mind, and part of it's because of what we went through the last few years, but generally, I want council to authorize committee meetings, if that makes any sense. Just because my feeling is a lot of times, if it goes to committee and those three decide something, then you bring it back to council and then you argue over it, then you're just kind of spinning your wheels.
to me-
Whereas if you bring it to council first and they get kind of a framework of what they want coming out of that committee, then they can kind of fine tune it, then bring it back to the council for approval, I guess.
I guess, you know, I mean, I can appreciate that way of looking at it, but the inverse of that to me is, then nothing ever gets it. I kind of want to see a proposal. I want this is put in front of the council. Where'd this come from? Well, the committee came up with it. Okay, and then the committee explains their idea, and then the council hashes it out and makes a vote. Versus the whole, like all, you know, who's chiefs and who's Indians, where everybody kind of throws in, and then I guess I don't want the framework on the committee. I want the committee to build the framework.
Well, and sometimes, I mean, I know when they decided what project they want to do out there at the airport, we had an airport committee meeting.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of other, besides council members, that sit on that committee.
Sure.
And so they were asked, would you like to put money in hangars? Would you like to put money in the, you know, in the road, in the parking lot? And they came
I was
to the
there,
kind of.
you were there, yeah.
Yeah, consensus that they would rather have the parking lots, so that's the way that we.
No, and that's great, but it's one of those,
Well, the
you
hangar
know.
thing, I think, was, we brought it to you first for suggestions. We thought we were gonna get somebody reply to us. That's what the letter said. Please let us know what you think of this new hangar. We never got one reply from one person that owns a hangar. So then there was nothing to talk to the committee.
Okay,
I mean,
right.
we asked, that was
It's
how
just
that
an
went.
example of something where,
Right.
you know.
I get it.
It's kind of like, I would have thought I would receive, you know, a notification or whatever. I mean, to me,
never
it's,
done that.
and I'm preaching, I've said this on how many
Well,
times, but the communication aspect of it is for that. But bigger than that is the committee issue, where it feels like there's a lot of things that can be run through committees to get hammered out or fleshed out and then brought to
Yeah.
council. It
There's
shouldn't
a
be city
downside
staff
to
having
it.
to
I mean,
part
yeah,
with
I
it.
mean, as long as council's aware that it's sent to a committee and they're working on it, then that's fine.
Okay.
I think what I'm trying to get away from is I don't want to have a committee calling a meeting, working something out, and then springing it on council and then going, where did this even come
And
from?
woe is me, I want more meetings, but I still think there'd be value in it. And I think then that would allow the council members to be more of a voice in the process rather than ends up just being hashed out later. I don't know. I think that would flow better, but that's me. I mean, it's your prerogative, Mr. Mayor.
Well, there's like I say, there's downsides of those ways. Yeah,
It kind of eliminates the transparency to the people, because everybody, even though it's a committee meeting, is entitled to come to the meeting. And if all of a sudden, 2 or 3 people are just gonna hold a meeting and decide something.
But see, they can't decide anything.
No, they can't.
No, we can't
All they
decide
can do is bring
anything,
it
we're
to
just getting a
council.
suggestion.
And honestly, for me, it's even, as much as it is our suggestions, it's just making sure all the possible ramifications are kind of fleshed out. Oh, what about this? Oh, good point. I mean, I think more voices at that kind of framing part of the project is good. Anyway, that's all.
Okay. Anything else on M and Finance?
I have a question for you. How the committee handle or work during the selection of the recreation guys?
Yeah, quite a few meetings.
And they came and presented, and then they worked out the details.
Yeah, they'd work on something, come and present where they were at with council, and council would kind of give them some guidance, and they'd go back, and it kind of went back and forth for a while, as I remember it.
Yeah, it was about a 3 or 4 meeting deal before that.
I think so, yeah. Ms. Diane?
I forgot, I had some question about the pool recap.
Okay.
Okay. How many hours did management have? Do you know, and how many were lifeguard hours?
I could go and, Do you want Joss the manager, or you want assistant managers, or
Well,
what would you like?
whatever. I
Well,
mean.
no, I can get it, but
Well,
you tell me.
I think it would be nice if we knew how many hours the managers had or managed.
The managers, okay.
Well,
We can
either
look that
one.
up. Well, I don't think we've ever done that before, but we can do that.
Well, we had, I think we had 2 managers, 2 assistant managers, right? And
Yes.
lifeguard hours.
Right. Sometimes the assistants were guards, so that one will be a little harder
Yeah,
for me.
well, maybe
But
the two,
managers I
the
could
2
do.
managers and the guards,
Absolutely.
maybe.
Yep, manager hours, I can get that.
And then what, and then we had like 25%, close to 25% profit on the,
Yeah, that's how it came out, so I don't know how that money flows, you know how that goes, but yeah.
that doesn't seem too good profit, but maybe
Oh,
that's
that's
standard.
better, we used to be in the
Well,
hole.
well, I know we used
All the
to, well, I
time.
know we used to go
I
in the
was
hole.
thrilled. That's
Right,
better
right,
money we've
right.
ever
Saying
had.
it was good.
But I think, no, I know we used to go in the hole. I
Oh,
know
yeah,
that.
we couldn't even hardly break even. We made $1,000. That one year, we thought we'd done something.
Yes, I realize, no, I realize what we
remember
used to
that.
do, but I don't know whether that's typical for most concession stands or not. I don't have any idea what the ballpark or anything does. I just
Yeah,
wondered.
I don't know
if-
what they make either, because we don't see those numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I thought maybe it might be a little higher than that. I don't know what stuff
I
costs
think that's the
us.
most we've made on the concession stand for years.
Yeah, well, no, I know what we used to make. Believe me, I know. I was there when I know what it was when it went in the hole, so. Anyway, but I was just curious as to
Sure,
what
and we
the-
can come up with the hours for you.
Yeah, just an idea. So I thought maybe she was gonna come to the,
Yeah.
and there again, I think it would be nice if we had a swimming pool, committee. We used to do that too. We used to have a committee that talked about the swimming pools stuff, so, but after the end of the season, before the next season started, and I
Parks
think
and
that
Rec
would
and-
be kind of nice to review, how things went, so, but, okay, that's all.
Okay, anything else on admin and finance? Okay, we do have a couple of appointments to the library board. Pat Schramm finish out the rest of Ally Bush's term, and Ross Wright finishing Brandon Wagner's term.
Move to approve the mayor's appointments.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 8-0. Okay. John, you had something you put in the packet, didn't you?
Well, I'm exhausted at this point in time,
I think we all are.
but I'll be back in 2 weeks. This is one I had somebody fill in for me from another city.
We can wait.
But if you look at it, it's interesting, came up on the listserv for city attorneys. Only Lawrence has done this, and it would potentially address one of our properties that have been condemned.
Okay.
And it was a concern about, well, we condemn it, we won't have title. Well, this addresses that question. And I do have a list of the councilmen back in 2011. I didn't realize I had it. Sean Cohorst, Bud Schutte, Charlie Swindeman, Liz Dahl, Tim Ackerman, Bob Chipman, Todd Fry, and Wayne Price. I did have a thought about going into executive session. I know my council is shut down now. We'll come back in 2 weeks. We do need an executive session to talk about personnel matters. But I have nothing further.
So you don't think we need to do one tonight?
I would say I don't think council was, I'm past 10 o'clock, I don't think she's gonna be able to join.
No. I didn't know if we needed to touch base with you quick or not.
If there's emergency, I'll ask for a special meeting, but I think I can wait till next, I'll be back in 2 weeks.
Right. That'll work. Okay. Nothing else? Yeah, we'll discuss that memorandum a little bit more in depth, maybe next meeting.
Okay.
And roundtable. Bobby?
I just want to say everybody's been holding up well. We've been under a lot of pressure. There's been a lot of things flying around. You know, this is, and someone who was on council before when I said I was gonna do this, said, "Oh, you sure?" And I said, "I don't know. I think it can be very thankless, but I also think it's very rewarding. And everybody sitting here at the table needs kudos given to them, you know, whether you're an elected official or, you know, you're hired. I think, you know, this is something you gotta really wade through, and there's a lot of deep pools in it. So, there.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Todd?
Nope, I don't think I have it.
Diane? Terry?
No.
Keith?
Yes, on this personal policies guideline, there's nothing in there about if you have an accident, I think we should have a drug test if you have an accident or something.
Oh.
I mean.
Is that not in there?
It is at your, department head's discretion if
Okay.
you have an accident.
But there's a policy, we have a policy.
But to make it mandatory that if you seek medical attention, that you have to have a drug test is not mandatory.
I couldn't find nothing in there that.
We do have the option,
Right,
at that point in time.
That's what I know. If you're in an accident, cause an accident, injured somebody else, I think it'd be mandatory you get drug tested. You know, like I've done several times.
House?
But all the CDL.
You don't have to answer that.
Random drug testing.
They are, all CDLs are.
Yeah.
Yeah, F8, post-accident testing. It's under F8.
I know it, but I didn't know what it said.
What page was that?
F8. Here, post-accident testing.
Page
They may be
32.
tested for the presence of drugs or alcohol.
Yep.
It doesn't say must, it says may.
Okay.
I'm good.
Anything else, Parker?
I'm good.
Colleen, Kevin?
Good.
All right, I don't have anything either.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
If I waited a 2 count, somebody'd beat me.